Folks, everybody, welcome back. Welcome back. I'm excited to welcome us to the second half of our quarterly meeting. Yesterday was for me extremely educational. Really appreciate the welcome from Region 1. It was fascinating to learn about the partnership with the Burkhardt Center, all of the brilliant things they're doing. It's that somewhat different approach to VR that yields great results. As I mentioned yesterday on the drive over, this concept of energy really struck me. And energy comes in different forms, right? You can have fossil fuel, all the oil derricks we have around, you can have wind farms. They both have a role to play. And when you combine the two, that's when this magic happens. And a lot of things we heard yesterday. There's some traditional things we're doing very well. There's some creative things we're doing. And when you bring the two together, that's the magic, right? That's the magic of that energy transformation. That is kind of the theme of our 2 days here. In the spirit of this, also very excited about our agenda for today. We have a number of committee report outs. We have a number of partners report outs. And it's all about the spirit of cooperation, of many folks coming together to do something good. So that's kind of the thing for today. Director Serna is going to kick us off with a bit of a overview of TWC, so we can have a better understanding of all the other things that TWC does that is of relevance to all of our stakeholders, our counselors, our customers, our employers, because at the end of the day, it's one system. It's one group, kind of one entity. It's not a bunch of little entities that are sort of doing their own thing. No, we're trying to really make it one seamless experience for all the stakeholders. So very excited to hear from Ed. And we're going to close off with I think a couple of interesting presentations from Jamie on things that are a little bit more, shall we say, fundamental, but must be in place. The competitive rate conversation, I'm really looking forward to that. Just really solid fundamentals that we must do exceptionally well. I am excited to welcome Commissioner Treviño. I'm excited to welcome Commissioner Treviño.
Yes, sir.
Wasn't able to join us yesterday, but is able to join us today. Commissioner, would love to give you a floor for a couple of minutes to make some remarks.
Well, thank you so much. Hello, everyone. I did get to listen in yesterday as I was traveling back to Austin, but I just wanted to take this time to let you all know that earlier this week, I had the opportunity to pop into the Workforce Forum for just a few minutes. If you were able to attend, I hope you had some time to network and to catch the keynote speakers that were very good. I realize that it takes months of planning and collaborating to get ready for these events each year. So I want to say especially thank you to anybody on this call that helped with that. I also want to thank the chairman and the committee members for your dedication to strengthen and enhance the vocational rehabilitation services. As I said, as I listened in yesterday, I learned that VR customers across the state benefit from the goals to recruit more providers, the streamline the policy, and staff development and retention, as well as increase employer partnerships. That is a lot of work, and I want you to know that my team and I are here to help. My door is always open, and if you're ever in the main building in Austin, please drop in. I want you all to have a happy Friday and a great afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. I appreciate the words of support. Director Serna. Director Serna. Are you online with us?
Yes, sir. I'm here. I'm having a little video problem, so I may not be able to turn on my video.
That's all right.
It was working fine.
Okay.
It was working fine earlier, and now it's really not working. So I apologize to you all.
Technology is great as long as it works, right?
That's right. That's right.
But that's all right. The most important thing is we have you on the line with us. want to give you a floor for some remarks and also catch us up on what's happening with the legislative session and talk to us a bit more about all of the TWC efforts that are of quite some relevance to the VR world.
Let me start off with a quick overview of the agency so that everybody kind of has that general understanding, and then I'll give you a brief overview of our legislative activity to date. The quick good news about the legislative activity is there are no moves to take anything from TWC or move anything to TWC of any significance. So we're very happy about that. But let me give you just a brief overview of your Texas Workforce Commission. My sinuses are also acting up. So on top of video, I think I'm falling apart too. As the closer I get to my birthday in a week or two, the more I seem to be falling apart. So much for that.
Director Serna, is there should we have a presentation on the screen?
No, there's no slide deck. I will send you all some material that we have, just so you can have it in the future. But there's no slide deck or anything like that. So this will just be a verbal overview from me. The Texas Workforce Commission is the second largest workforce agency in the nation, and it's one of only a handful of workforce agencies across the entire country that has all the components of the Workforce Innovation and Opportunities Act, commonly referred to as WIOA. We have employment services, vocational rehabilitation, adult education and literacy, and unemployment insurance. In addition, we're one of an even smaller group of workforce agencies that also is responsible for providing childcare services to qualified individuals. And I'll talk about each of those programs in just a second. The agency is, our annual budget is projected to be about $2.5 billion with a B, $billion in fiscal year 24 and 25. 88% of our funding is from federal sources, federal funding. The remaining general revenue, the remaining funding, the portion that is general revenue supports the drawdown, the majority of that supports the drawdown of the federal funds. So we really have just a small amount of general revenue that's discretionary. The reason I say this to you is when you hear about state budget cuts, now this is not one of those sessions where we talk about budget cuts, but when you hear about state budget cuts and things like that, it is to agencies that are primarily funded with state dollars, not federal dollars. So we've been pretty insulated from a lot of those. We still have to come up with a cut, but it's from a smaller amount, not the 2.5 billion. We have about 4,900 FTEs statewide, and we do have a statewide presence. And we run about 200 to 300 vacancies every month. The significance of that is that we're always looking to hire good people, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on your perspective. Unfortunately, because we have to go through a hiring process. Fortunately, because it brings fresh ideas and fresh thoughts into the agency on a regular and consistent basis. Let me give you just a brief overview of the major programs that we have, and then some of the not lesser, but some of the minor programs we have as well. Of course, vocational rehabilitation is one of our larger programs from the perspective of the FTEs and the services we provide. We are a direct service provider to our customers, our counselors and our RAs in the field. Of course, we provide services through contracts with service providers and other professionals. We also, in that same division, which y'all know very well, so I'm not going to dwell too much on it, but in that same division, we also provide services to older individuals who are blind or visually impaired. And then we also run the Chris Cole Rehabilitation Center here in Austin, which is basically a school, a residential facility, short-term residence, like a school, like a dorm, where individuals who have recently lost their vision can come and learn the skills they need to gain their independence again. And that's a facility that we have here in North Austin. Our other divisions are our unemployment insurance, which everybody probably heard about back in 2020 during the pandemic. Back then, between March of 2020 and probably early 21, we issued more than $5 billion in unemployment benefits to qualifying individuals. We took more phone calls and more applications for unemployment than we have ever taken in the past in a single year. As a matter of fact, during the first 6 weeks of the pandemic, we took the equivalent of the previous year's number of claims, or slightly more than the previous year's number of claims. And then as we progressed through the pandemic, every month set a record for the number of claims and the number of dollars issued. To provide those services, that is again we're a direct service provider. We have 4 call centers around the state, one in Fort Worth, one in San Antonio, one in the Valley in McAllen, and one in El Paso. These are state employees, did an outstanding job dealing with the volume of calls. There were days where we had in excess of 1 million calls in a single day. And even though we had all of our call center staff working and we had brought on board 4 additional contract call centers, it was impossible to keep up with that volume of calls. But the staff did an outstanding job serving everybody that needed to get benefits from the state of Texas. Under normal circumstances, like we are in now, we issue about $2 billion a year in unemployment insurance benefits. We also have a very sophisticated appeals process for either the unemployment insurance claimant or the employer. If either party chooses to appeal a decision concerning a benefit, that ultimately ends in a decision being made by one of our 3 commissioners, a decision made by our 3 commissioners in one of our commission meetings, a public commission meeting. From a dollars perspective, that division to operate it is about 159, let's say 160 million a year. We pay out, as I indicated, just about $2 billion every year from our trust fund, and we try to maintain a balance in our trust fund of between $1 billion and $2 billion. And the trust fund is funded by taxes, unemployment insurance taxes that Texas employers pay on the individuals that they have working for them. So it is employer-based tax that supports the unemployment insurance system. So as a result, we also have a very sophisticated auditing and tax enforcement function in our unemployment insurance division. Our other important division is the other side of the house, where we help people find jobs, maybe find their first career or find their next career. We also, in that capacity, we work through 28 independent boards around the state. There's a board up in the Lubbock area, in the Panhandle. But we work with the 28 independent boards. They provide the services, pretty much the majority of the services. They're the boots on the ground. We provide the funding and the guidance to make sure that all the services are made available statewide in all of the boards. We have a good working relationship with the boards. It is a little bit more than a franchise relationship, in that those boards have other funding sources and other responsibilities in their local communities. But the significance is the boards are appointed by local elected officials, and those board members come from business in the private sector, they come from the public sector, they come from education, and their goal is to identify the priorities in their particular board areas. All 254 counties are represented by our 28 local boards. Our workforce development division has got about $427 million annually in budget, primarily from federal funds. And most of that goes to the boards in the form of grants to the boards to serve our customers. We have programs such as adult education and literacy, where we help individuals who maybe didn't get their high school diploma to get a high school diploma. We help individuals who maybe need to refresh their literacy in reading or in math or some of the other skills. We also are adding digital literacy to our what we call AEL, Adult Education and Literacy. We're adding a digital literacy component because that's very important as we move forward. We do provide SNAP and TANF services, and we have a very robust apprenticeship program where we work with the Department of Labor to establish a registered apprenticeship program, working with companies to establish that apprenticeship, help them set it up, funding portions of it, portions of the apprenticeship program for those individuals who are taking that on. And then, because we have found it to be so successful, we're actually using it ourselves, the apprenticeship program that is. We have 9 apprentices in our information technology division who are learning to code and learning network technologies as apprentices. And when they're done, they're getting paid while they're learning and actually doing something to assist us as well. And at the end, hopefully they'll stay with us. But if not, we know that they'll have a great career, a great opportunity to advance in the working fields. Our fourth and final major program is our child care and early learning program. Financially, this is our largest program. Annually, we're projecting that program to be about $1 billion. The vast majority of that goes to pay for child care for children of qualified families. Qualification is income-based, and the parents have to either be in job training or just starting a job. Right now, we're projecting in the next year or so to be able to support about 140,000 children a day in childcare. Now, that sounds like a whole lot, but it's only about 13% of the children in Texas that are in childcare and early learning programs. There are about 13 to 14,000 childcare providers, and about half of those, about 7,000, accept the children that we provide childcare scholarships to. During the pandemic, speaking again a little bit during the height of the pandemic, This division received a whole lot of federal funds. There were a lot of federal funds that came to the state, specifically to the Workforce Commission, specifically to this division, to assist that industry. All told, it was well in excess of $5 billion. We used those funds to pay for childcare for first responders early on in the pandemic. And then as businesses started opening again, we paid for childcare for service industry employees. And in those cases, they didn't have to qualify based on the financial requirements. It was based on their employment. We've also assisted through a grant program, through several different tranches or allocations. We've assisted childcare providers, both those that are just in our program and in the entire industry, in attempt to keep them up and running. Because we always knew that childcare was important, but we learned that childcare is very important to a stable, available workforce, which we believe Texas has. From a staffing perspective, it is one of our smaller divisions, considering everything that they do and all that they deal with statewide. The number of people that they have doing that is really pretty incredibly small, and they're very capable. All of our staff, I believe, are very capable, but they're very capable and have done an outstanding job.
The director, sorry, quick question. For the child care program, you mentioned qualifications. You have to be in a job training program. What about VR? Is somebody who's receiving VR services, are they eligible?
If they meet and I was going to tie all of these together, if they meet the financial qualifications, because it is primarily financial qualifications, then someone who's in VR, and let me talk about this real quickly. I have just a couple of more programs I want to talk about, but let me the good
Sorry,
point, Mr. Chairman.
sorry if I stole your thunder.
No.
We can leave it for the later part.
No. It's actually pretty good. The reason I'm providing the committee with this overview is, as you move forward to suggest ways to improve our vocational rehabilitation program, I would like for you to keep in mind that the Workforce Commission does all these other things. So individuals with a disability may be individuals who lost employment through no fault of their own. Therefore, they qualify for unemployment insurance. They may be individuals that qualify for or that need adult education and literacy to enhance their literacy skills. They may be individuals, or there may be ways to link the program so that they can take advantage of childcare services while they are in training to get their next career or their new career because of the effects of the disability. And of course, they have to meet the other qualifying factors. Or they may be individuals that will be attending some of our skills development training or are eligible for some of our other services. So TWC, our counselors are sort of informed, and we continue to try to keep them informed about all these other services. And the original idea that the legislature had when it moved vocational rehabilitation to the Workforce Commission was that there would be a stronger link between the efforts of the Workforce Commission through the boards indirectly and the vocational rehabilitation functions in the state, so that individuals with a disability could be seamlessly assisted, not only to get the tools they need to address the disability and gain independence again, but then also get the assistance and the tools they need to either start their own business or join the workforce or restart their career or start a new career, and make that as seamless as possible. And I think that we've taken great strides in doing that. And in the chairman's idea, quite frankly, he should get the credit. The chairman's idea in providing this overview is so that all the committee members would understand what we at TWC understand, which is we have a sort of broad scope of services that everybody, and I mean everybody, can take advantage of, not just individuals with disabilities or individuals without disabilities, but everybody, excuse me, that everybody can take advantage of. Very quickly, let me just touch on these other functions that you need to know about, because they can assist you all as you move forward, and I'm sure that we'll provide more detailed information. The long-term goal, by the way, just so that the committee members understand this, and the chairman and I have talked about this, and I think he is supportive of this, is that on a regular basis, I'll have a division director provide a little bit more of a detailed dive into what's going on in their division. And then on a regular basis, I'll keep the committee informed about what's going on at TWC. And I think that's still something we want to do. Very quickly, the what I'll call the minor programs, minor because of their size and scope. One of them is our agency provides a civil rights function for the state of Texas. So basically equal employment opportunity and housing. So we investigate allegations of housing discrimination and employment discrimination. We work with the federal EEOC and HUD in order to accomplish that, Housing and Urban Development, in order to accomplish that. We have a very small staff that does that. They conduct the investigations, make a determination. And we do that not only for government or state agencies, but for all businesses in the state of Texas. We have a very robust fraud detection and prevention program and a compliance monitoring program. The intersection with vocational rehabilitation is that we look for potential and investigate potential situations of fraud with our service providers in VR, not just them, by the way, but that's the connection, one of the connections. We look for potential fraud in our unemployment insurance program, childcare program, our workforce program. So not just vocational rehabilitation. I don't want you all to think that there's an issue there. It's not. That's just one of the areas that we do that in. Our investigators are professional investigators. They do a very good job. We also look internal to make sure that none of our employees are attempting to perpetrate any fraud. And internally, when we do find that occurs, we immediately take action to terminate the employee and address any issues that occurred. But the link there with VR is it's part of the ongoing review that our fraud detection and compliance monitoring staff do. We also have a division that the name of the division is Information, Innovation, and Insight, commonly referred to as I3. So just you can imagine a capital I and then the number 3. I3 is responsible for producing and analyzing all the data that TWC accumulates. So performance measures, performance reports, labor market information, economic trends, things like that, all come out of I3. The link again to the Rehabilitation Council of Texas Committee is when you all need information, Cheryl and her staff will go to I3 to draw the information and to link not only performance but economic indicators to that performance, so that we can better plan what it is that we're doing as we move forward as an agency and as a program. And then we have our outreach and employer initiatives function. This small division is dedicated to all of our communication efforts. So social media, the content on the web, not the web itself, excuse me, the content on the web, our written materials, our presentation material, our presentations, things like that. They also manage our skills development fund that employers can use to train their workforce, and our JET program funds, job education in Texas, for Texans. JET provides funding for institutions of higher education or independent school districts to buy equipment in order to train people on. So that the nexus there with the RCT is if there is some material, some outreach efforts that the RCT thinks we need to work on or improve on or wants us to emphasize on, y'all should know that will be accomplished through our outreach and employer initiatives division, our communications division. The TWC spokesperson is also in that division, as well as a recording studio, audiovisual recording studio. So when you see our chairman's blogs or things like that, they were all produced in that studio. And then finally, a relatively newer division is our customer care division. One of the things that we learned from the pandemic is we needed to improve how we served our customers. And we are developing a mechanism. It is still in the development. Well, it's a little bit more than in the development phases, but I'm going to say it's still in the development phases based on the broader view that we have for this or plans that we have for this. But our customer care division will act as a main door, not the only way to contact TWC and get services, but a way that you can call in or maybe email or chat, and you'll get the information you need. The goal is, long-term goal is, you will immediately get the service you need, or that individual in our customer care division will put our customer in direct contact with the individual who will be able to assist them. It's still being developed. The other part of that goal is that it will also link our 28 boards into that service. So not only TWC and all the TWC divisions, but our 28 boards as well, so that there'll be a single wraparound service, or the opportunity for a single wraparound service for our customers, so that they don't have to go from place to place to place. So let's say one of our VR customers contacts our customer call center. That customer call center will either get them the answer they need immediately, or will schedule an appointment with a counselor, or maybe get someone from VR on the phone to assist them. But it could be that individual lost their job too. So they'll also get someone from unemployment insurance to assist them. And then they'll also see if they can assist them getting registered and work in Texas, so that they can maybe find their next job, and maybe even talk about the potential of childcare as well. Excuse me, the potential of childcare as well. So a lot going on there. And of course, like all large organizations, we have a very competent IT department, except for my monitor today, or my camera, I should say, not my monitor. But a very competent, and by the way, we're replacing all of our PCs, so I'm really looking forward to my new PC whenever it gets here. This one is about, I think I've had this one for about 4 or 5 years now, and it's well used. But we have a very competent IT department, a very skilled and competent financial services division. We have business operations that arranges for maintains all of our facilities. We are responsible for maintaining our own facilities. So they maintain our facilities. They are our purchasing agents and our contracting agents. We have a warehouse operation. So you can see we are a complete service, both internal and external organization. So that's kind of a high level overview of the agency. Mr. Chairman, let me ask the members if they have any questions. And then if not, I'll provide a very quick summary of our legislative activity to date. So any questions for me concerning the Workforce Commission?
I got one.
Yes, sir.
I got one. The director of the 2 billion plus budget. You mentioned a major part of it comes from federal government. How much of it is subject to us in the state matching a portion of it?
A lot of it is subject to a match. Unemployment insurance is not necessarily, but a lot of it is subject to a match, but not as much as you would think from a dollar perspective. We're really structured in such a way that we're receiving 2 and 3 to 1 on a match. Unemployment insurance comes directly down without a match. VR does have a match, a small match. I shouldn't say small. These are millions of dollars, but
yeah, well, 21, 22%, something like that, right?
Yeah. So that's relatively small considering the amount that's coming down.
Okay. And do you see any? Sorry, I might put a little bit here on the spot.
That's okay.
But going beyond just this legislation, how do you see the landscape of us in the state being able to match, to take full advantage of the federal funding?
Oh, I think we're really well positioned to do that. The legislature always makes a priority of identifying and not cutting general revenue. At least in my experience, has always made a priority of identifying and not cutting general revenue that goes to match and draw down federal dollars. Excuse me. So I think we're positioned really, really well. They're also very supportive of giving us flexibility if we can identify and draw down other federal grants that don't require a match. For example, here about 6 months ago, we submitted a grant application for an additional $10 million to expand our apprenticeship program in our workforce division. And we have the ability to utilize those funds without having to go back to the legislature, wait 2 years. Of course, they're in session now, but when they're not in session, you end up waiting almost 2 years or 18 months in order to get authority to spend those funds. So if we can draw down or receive other grants, even the ones that don't require a match, which we are pretty good at doing, we have the ability to spend those dollars and apply them to the various programs. So I think on the horizon, I continue to see the legislature being supportive of the agency. Excuse me, I apologize. My allergies are killing me. Part of the reason, and I'm going to brag a little bit about the agency, and it's not me, it's the 4,899 other employees at the agency. Part of the reason the legislature is so supportive is because of the success of the agency at delivering services and focusing on the needs of all of our customers. So not just the job seekers or the businesses, but the individuals with disabilities that need assistance, the families that need assistance. We've proven very successful at efficiently using the resources that we receive, at addressing any problems that come our way, and continuing to serve all of our customers across the board. And really what the pandemic showed everybody that we kind of already knew was that the Workforce Commission, not just the function of workforce, but the Workforce Commission and the workforce system, and the difference between the commission and the system is the commission is our agency, the system is our agency plus the 28 workforce boards, that we are very effective and very critical at supporting the state's broad economy and really being an integral part in the state's success. So I think the prospects for us, Mr. Chairman, of continuing to get support from the legislature for our funding are very good. Now, I should knock on wood, and if you could see me on my camera, you'd see me knocking on my head, as my grandmother would say, real wood. But I think our future prospects look as good as our current activity.
Okay. So in this session, did we ask for the full state match essentially? So we get the at least for VR, so we get the full federal grant.
Yes, sir. We asked for everything that we had budgeted. We asked the match for everything. We will, if necessary, we will go back out and see what other funds we can draw down as we can spend those funds. We have seen, and I think Cheryl may have reported, we have seen a continued increase, especially in our pre-ETS activity, a continued increase in our spending. Excuse me again. And keep in mind, for us, spending is not just willy-nilly spending, it's spending on programs to serve our customers. We have seen an increase in that, and we'll continue to move forward to address it. I would love to be in a position in the future, and we're in this position in a couple of other programs, but love to be in a position in the future where we were to say to Department of Education, which is where we receive our VR funding, hey, look, if there are any states that are not spending their money, we'll take it. And that does happen, and we have received some additional funding both in VR as well as in our other programs, but we are on that path. The pandemic, we were seeing nationwide, and I think y'all probably got this report. I apologize. We saw nationwide a decline in the use of vocational rehabilitation services by customers. We've figured out and we've seen that turn around to where we're seeing that increase again. It's like I said, especially in our pre-ETS employment training services program. And we're going to continue to emphasize that. A lot of our programs that were like summer earn and learn have been very successful, and we may want to change them to just earn and learn, and move them to more than just summer. So we're exploring things like that as well. We feel very, very, very confident in our ability to get the funds we need and to serve our customers, and expand how we serve our customers. And we're constantly, the executive team and I are constantly looking at our operations to determine what things we need to do better, what things we need to stop doing because they really aren't having that big of an effect, and then what things do we need to start doing that we haven't been doing that could have an effect for us. One of the things I like about TWC globally, and it includes VR, is that we're willing to try different things, and if it works, that's great. We'll continue to run with it. If it doesn't work, we'll stop it quick and go on to something else. We won't just spin our wheels in the mud. So that's something I really like about this agency. This is my 6th state agency to serve in, my 2nd as an executive director in my going on 38 years of state service. And this is by far, not just because I'm here, but by far the best agency with one of the most comprehensive, meaningful missions in state government. So I'm very pleased about that.
So we did ask for the sufficient match, so we are not leaving any federal grant money on the table.
We asked for sufficient match. There may be federal grant money that we didn't seek, but it may have come with requirements that we thought weren't things that we could successfully accomplish. But the last thing you want to do is ask for federal grant money and then not be able to spend it and have to give it back. But we did ask for everything that we needed at the time. And I say at the time, keep in mind, one of the things that y'all may not know is agencies put their appropriations requests, they're called legislative appropriations requests, or LARs. The legislature receives those and begins analyzing and making decisions on those in January and February, and all through the legislative session, every odd numbered year. But the agency has to develop and submit its LAR by the early fall of even numbered years. And in order to do that, you start working on the development of the budget in the spring. So the budget that we will be working off of in fiscal year 25 and 26, and that starts September 1st of this year, was actually being developed in the early spring, late winter, early spring of 22. So it's a little bit of a challenge to, not so much to project that far out, but a little bit of a challenge to get everything lined up and make sure that you're getting everything that you need, not knowing what things will change in the economy. So,
Question.
yes.
Who all is on the LBB? Because isn't that who develops the LAR? Who develops the LAR? And how about the LBB?
Oh, sure. The Legislative Budget Board is made up of House and Senate members. They have a staff. There's a legislative agency that's the LBB that is staff to that Legislative Budget Board. It's basically a legislative committee. But the Legislative Appropriations Request, the LAR, each agency puts together its own LAR based on instructions that it is given by the LBB. So the LBB issues their instructions. For example, for this LAR, the LBB issued its instructions in probably January of 22 or December of 21, saying, okay, here's what we want. Here's what, these are the instructions. And the instructions include not only format, but what things to include, where to put them, things like that. So for example, it used to be that PCs that were leased were an operating expense. And then the LBB decided to change it and say, no, that's a capital expense. And capital items are treated differently than operational items. But each agency puts together its own legislative appropriations request. It's a massive document that follows the format put together by the LBB. We post ours online. I would not recommend anybody trying to read it unless you really like to look through redundancy of reports and numbers and things like that, because it's about an inch thick, maybe, with just a lot of tables and schedules and things like that, and really very little text other than the administrator statement at the very beginning. So, but we put together our own, we assemble our own LAR. Our finance team does that based on input from the program divisions. Excuse me, input from the program divisions. It also includes our performance measures that are established by the LBB for us. So it's a pretty comprehensive financial document. Unless you've been in state government, and I've been in the private sector as well, by the way. I worked at Northrop Grumman and 3Com, Harris Lanier, and IBM. But unless you've been in government, it is a document that doesn't make sense to you. It's not a balance sheet, an income statement, a P&L, anything like that. So it's a very unique document.
So where does the LBB get their performance requirements? If they're the ones setting the performance requirements, and the agencies are putting together the LAR, where does the LBB get those requirements?
The agencies get to submit their recommendations, their suggestions for various performance measures. A lot of times the LBB will say, we want to see this particular thing measured like this. But the agencies included in that LAR, the agencies get to make recommendations on performance measures. The LBB evaluates that and either accepts them, changes them, or says, no, we want you to do this other thing. And then moves forward. The interesting thing is when you submit your LAR to the LBB, the staff of the LBB, they may change it, including the performance measures. They may change it in the document that they submit to the actual legislature. So we may have asked for, I'm going to make this up because this was not the case, but we may have asked for 5,000 FTEs and the LBB may have come back and said, yeah, no, we're not giving you, you're going to stay at 4,900. They will do an analysis of the LAR and put their budget together for one for the House and then an entirely different one for the Senate. And it has nothing to do with the governor's budget. And then our performance measures are reported quarterly to the LBB if it's a quarterly measure, or semi-annually, or annually if it's one of those measures. We report them through an online system to the LBB. Okay, any other questions on this? Because I'm going to give you a quick overview, very quick overview, because I've got 9 minutes left. Quick overview of our legislative activity. I even wore a tie for y'all today, and I saw my camera.
Well, we have 19 minutes for you. I don't know if you're Bob
Okay.
or something else.
No, 19, perfect. Let me give you just a quick overview of legislative activity. First, let's start with the budget. The House approved everything we requested, including the extra items that we asked for. We asked for some extra money for skills development and childcare. The childcare was to draw down additional federal funds. I think we asked for $35 million in childcare to draw down an additional $52 million in fiscal year 26. 26? Yeah, 26. We asked for extra money in skills development, in pre-apprenticeship, and for an industry-recognized apprenticeship program, which is different than a DOL registered apprenticeship program. The industry-recognized program relies much, much more on input from industry and does not need a Department of Labor approval. The House approved everything we asked for. As I kind of mentioned at the very beginning, everything we asked for, including all of our exceptional items. The Senate, because they each consider a separate bill, SB 1 and HB 1, House Bill 1 and Senate Bill 1. The Senate approved everything we asked for, except for our skills extra request and our pre-apprenticeship extra request. They're called exceptional items. They approved half of what we asked for those two items only. Everything else was 100% of what we asked for. So we came out pretty good from both sides of the legislature. Going into conference committee, which is the 5 members of the House and the 5 members of the Senate that will go over the entire bill and reconcile the differences, there's only 2 things for them to reconcile: whether we get all of the funding we requested for those 2 exceptional items, or whether we get half of the funding we requested for those 2 exceptional items, or something in between that. At this point in the game, they can't add more money, nor can they take that away, because it's on one side or another. So the backstop is the half. So that's actually pretty good. We're very pleased with where we're at. in the appropriations process, we should come out good in the final bill. So that includes everything we asked for across the board, plus what I just described. Regarding regular legislation, there was very little legislation that focused on our vocational rehabilitation program. There was some legislation that had tangential impacts to the program, such as more clearly defining certain disabilities or recognizing particular days to recognize particular disabilities, but recognizing, but drawing attention to them in a positive light. But nothing that modified the program, moved the program out, brought other aspects of a program in. And that's across the board, by the way, not just in DR, but in other areas. We did not see the legislature add any major programs or take any major programs from us. The area that was receiving the most attention was childcare. The industry is really struggling. The model with not only the service but the model, and there are a lot of bills that are intended to assist families or assist the industry in the childcare area, especially the way it impacts us is for those children that we provide a scholarship or a subsidy for, that $140,000 a day that I was mentioning. And that doesn't equate to 140,000 families because some families have 2 and 3 children in childcare. So that's why I'm not saying 140,000 families, but it's 140,000 children a day. In those areas, again, the legislature was recognizing that we have successfully executed that program and was looking to us to continue to assist the industry as a whole and those families specifically that we support, and maybe expanding the base. And then there are some bills concerning fraud and fraud detection and prevention and enforcement that are advancing as well, that will give us more tools that we need to protect the data that we have and to prevent fraud. Again, not just in the unemployment insurance program, which is what most people immediately go to, but in all of our programs across the board. The fraudsters discovered us during the pandemic with $5 billion going out, and now they know that we exist, and we have $1 billion in childcare, $2 billion in unemployment insurance payments, hundreds of millions in grants. So we have a very robust program to defend the agency's systems and our customers. I would like to very pleased to report during the pandemic, there was a great deal of identity theft, stolen identities that were used to falsely claim unemployment insurance benefits, but none of those identities came from information that was breached or stolen from TWC. It was all information that had been stolen some time ago, at the Office of Personnel Management at the federal government years ago, Target, Home Depot. When you see those breaches, all that data goes to the dark web and gets sold, but none of the data that was used or that's on the dark web was stolen from a TWC system. We also have a very aggressive cybersecurity program to protect our data. So that includes the data of our vocational rehabilitation customers. So legislatively, just a few of the bills are still moving through the process. I think next week is Monday, I think, is the last day that a House bill has to get out of the House committee. And I think it's the 11th is the last day that a House bill has to get out of the House. on third reading. If not, then those bills are no longer viable. They're dead. So as we wind down towards the end of the session, we'll see a lot of activity. Our staff is, of course, used to this cycle, this cadence towards the end of the session. But I'm pleased to report that there's very little legislation that has a heavy impact on the agency. None of it that has an adverse impact on the agency. And very pleased to report to you all that the legislature currently holds the agency in high regard with regard to its ability to execute our mission that's given to us by the governor and by the legislature. So that's kind of a 100,000-foot view of our legislative activity. After the session is over and at the next meeting, which I think is in Tyler, that I intend to be at in person, good Lord willing, and the creek don't rise, because then I won't have to worry about a camera. And you can see the nice tie that I put on for y'all. I'll ask Michael Brett, it may be virtual, but I'll ask Michael Brett or Tom McCarty to provide a more detailed legislative analysis, but there's not going to be very much more to it than that. So any questions that I can answer, Mr. Chairman, anything else you want me to bring up, or any questions that I can answer to any of y'all? Of course, you know, this is not the only opportunity you have to ask me a question. You can reach out to me. Lisa can get a hold of me, or you can reach out to me directly via email or a phone call, and I'll be glad to answer any questions that any RCT member has concerning the agency, the program, or what's going on at TWC.
Council members, any thoughts, questions for Director Serna? Any parts of TWC that are going to learn more about, especially affecting our VR stakeholders?
This is done. I'm really, really encouraged what they do. It's very fantastic. I think it's your best kept secret. It's safe tested. That keeps the whole state going. Thank you very much.
Thank you for those words. That's very kind. You know, one of the things that we are working on is to stop being the best kept secret. This is, you know, this is one of those where it's good that people recognize that we do as much once they learn what we do, but I would like it that we're not a well-kept secret, and we're working on that. Our outreach division, those staff are really working hard to get messages out on social media, on our web, through publications, through interviews, things like that, and y'all can help us as well. I've got some material that I'll make sure that we send, very high level, what I call one-pagers. They're really, some of them are a couple of pages, but they're generically called one-pagers that just provide a 60,000-foot overview of some of our programs in the agency. So thank you all very much for your time. I appreciate it. I apologize again for my camera malfunctioning, because I had it on earlier. I know it was working. I know it could work. So I don't know what happened. When it was my time to come on and I clicked the little button, it's like, okay, nothing's coming on. This is not good. So sorry about that, but
No. No apologies necessary. No apologies necessary.
Thank you.
Yeah. One final comment from me, if nothing else from the council. Two comments. So public engagement, this idea of this should not be the worst kept secret in Texas, very much near and dear to our hearts. It's also a lot of the efforts that we as a council want to take on this year is kind of increase public engagement, public outreach, just more information flow. And the other item is, if there's any concern that we will not be able to spend the government money, the federal government money, I'm pretty sure, based on what we heard yesterday, based on what we heard over the past couple of meetings, we can come up with very good creative ways to very productively spend the federal government money. So we should not be afraid to match it. I don't think we'll be giving anything back.
absolutely not. I agree 100%. I don't like giving anything back, especially when we have so many people that can take advantage of the services that we have.
Thank you, Director. Thank you, Director. I appreciate you.
Thank you all very much. I unfortunately have to leave the meeting now and get on the road and go to Uvalde to meet with a county judge down there. But it's been my pleasure to spend this time with you and look forward to seeing you all in person in Tyler at the next meeting. So have a great rest of your meeting.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
thank you. Director bespoke, our next meeting is going to be in Austin, just in case anybody's starting to book hotel reservations in Tyler. All right, next item on our agenda is the committee reports. If Lisa Cowart she's on the line, I think.
I'm
She
here.
was on the line. Oh, Lisa, good to see you.
How are y'all this morning?
We are great.
I know we don't have a whole lot of time, but I believe if you guys want to see the deep dive into the statistics, all of that is in our shared drive. I don't know if I need to pull that up because I know we don't have a whole lot of time. So I'll give the snapshot version of two different things. One is the overall customer satisfaction surveys. For this particular quarter, we are actually getting more overall customer survey responses so far in this fiscal year. For the general overall customers, there is a small and a pretty small decrease in the response rate for the customers that are blind or visually impaired. Then we're not real sure, and I did ask this question as to why they're down a little bit this quarter. But overall, for the blind and visually impaired, the numbers are up. So it may be that Westat is not giving as much focus to those particular subset of customers at this time. Overall, for the closed cases, we are at about 23.24% response rate, which is on target, which is where it should be. And there was some conversation and it has been decided that Westat will be the survey provider. Again, that contract has been renewed with them. And they are moving to a omni approach, which I had to ask some details about that kind of at the fiscal year, the beginning of this next fiscal year, where there's going to be more opportunity for there to be responses to the surveys via text and other means. And we do have a council member, Amanda Bowden, that is going through some of that now. So we had some discussions about that through a different service, and it's called Sarah, and she's kind of.
Do you want me to speak on that?
Sure, you could for just a moment.
Okay, so what is it, Thursday? Wednesday, I get a text message. I'm going through the process with TWC for the deaf, hard of hearing. And I get a text message from, Sarah. And I do not know who Sarah is. And I don't know why she's trying to reach me. And but I also didn't really listen too much to her. But really what it was at the very end, it just said that it's a communication with your counselor and you need to respond with a T. Well, I didn't really pay any attention to it at first, so I didn't even respond at all. But once I did respond, it was very easy. It will say that this is for you to text back and forth with your counselor. From time to time, please reply with a yes or no. And then it'll ask you about your email address, about the best phone number that you have to see if that's correct. And then ask you, can you access the internet on your phone, like Facebook, Google, email? Yes. And then the only thing it does say is that data rates will apply. So, but that's okay. And but it gives you the phone number to your counselor, and then you can just respond. I did respond to something, and it just said, thanks, I'll let your the counselor know. So I did reach out to one of our transition counselors in my building give her a heads up. She did say a lot of kids that she thought I was talking about a former student named Sarah. So I don't know if that is something like if the counselors need to either send out a flyer, an email, or call to say, hey, this is going to happen. You know, it's going to be a program called Sarah. You know, don't ignore it. You know, you might want to respond to it. But seriously, they're not going to, these kids are probably not going to know who Sarah is if they could, it might be a scam or somebody just creeping on them. So those are just some thoughts that I came from that might help whomever.
And I thought this was exciting. And as far as us as a committee in Westat, I'm hoping, and I'll have my fingers crossed here, that this will help improve some of those lesser responses or the more negative responses that they're not getting, you know, callback or information regarding a change of counselor and things like that. So I'm optimistically hopeful that after this is fully implemented, counselors are fully trained, users of this system are fully trained, that we can hopefully start seeing some improvement. Because when we were talking yesterday, we were informed that, you know, when a counselor leaves, that this system can be used to push messages out to their clients like, oh, your counselor has left, your new counselor is this person, and this is how you get in contact with them. So I know that as the satisfaction committee, we have seen that historically has been a lower responded to question, you know, that they were getting timely responses from their counselors and things like that. So I feel like that is definitely a good move for that. And we were told that part of the contract with Westat, they are capable of having a system that can do that. But that's not something that they want to transition to right now in the middle of the year. It was my understanding that they're going to look to doing more of that maybe at the first of the year. And the other thing that the council might be able to help with on that is we want to review, or maybe want to review the survey questions. This might be a good time to update the survey questions that we're asking. And so coming forward, as it gets a little closer, we're going to be getting some information from Scott and that team, looking at the questions maybe. And we even talked about maybe a multi-tier approach. I know with my ADHD-ness that I am not really good. If you were to send me a survey that had 20 questions, I'd be like, not today, not going to do it. So maybe if they had like their first 3 or 4 most pressing questions, ask those first, and you would most likely get a response. And then you could give the option or the prompt if you would like to provide further, deeper input, you know, text yes, or put something in there where you could maybe answer deeper questions. So that's some exciting changes coming our way on that. Does anybody have any questions on that part?
Lisa, so when is the Westat moving to the omni-channel survey?
They had said yesterday that looks like it would be at the beginning of the fiscal year.
So right when the new contract kicks in, that's when they're moving over to the
Right.
approach.
That's what they said, that Westat will be the survey provider, and then they'll be changing to the Omni approach at the beginning of the fiscal year, was kind of the notes that I made on that.
Okay, and are they actually planning to write on top of Sarah, or that was just an example of a?
I think Sarah was an
special-
example, because
Okay.
that is an actual program through something else, but that Westat, because that was my thing, like, oh, are these the same things? No, but Westat has similar capabilities, and that's something they're looking to move to.
Okay.
In addition to the others, they're not going to do away with, you know, the other, you know,
Of course.
surveys and things like that. But I feel like keeping a little more up with the times, that would be probably a more productive way to get some responses.
Yeah.
And
They're not
hopefully, you
scratching
know,
the
to
phone
improve
survey.
that response rate, and that customers will be happy for that way.
Okay. Is the idea to add text and email, or just text? Do you know?
I'm not sure. They just talked about how the texting is working. And of course, we have a user right here as part of our committee that could speak to what that looked like and how it really was easy once it was understood that this was TWC VR and not Sarah, so that she didn't know.
Yeah.
And Mr. Chairman, if I may offer a quick bit of additional information, I'm so glad Amanda shared that experience with you, but we might have missed a step in there somewhere in communication and making sure everybody was aware of the rollout. So you might have heard me talk about Sarah in some of our prior meetings as part of our case management redesign project. We are redesigning the core application to improve workflow, but it's going to remain essentially consistent. But Sarah is an automated attendance software that was actually developed for VR several years ago, and multiple states are using it. And the Veterans Administration for their VRAD program adopted it a couple of years ago now. So that's going to be kind of part of our case management system, and it's going to allow our counselors and our customers to communicate in ways that most of us communicate now as customers. What we will be able to do once we roll out the second release in this case management system redesign, which rolls out in, now I need to really knock on something, but it rolls out in June. The communication back and forth between a customer and a counselor will be written into the case record in RehabWorks. So that is going to also help our counselors and our customers hopefully communicate more often. But Sarah, as a software system, can also follow up with customers at periodic points in their service to make sure everything's going okay. The semester is over, you were able to complete. Please make sure to get us your grade report. Is there anything that you need? It's a great way to enhance the communication that we have. But we do need to make sure we're getting the word out. So Amanda, thank you so much for sharing your experience. I'm glad it was easy. I wish it hadn't been a surprise.
Well, I think one of the things that we talked about is possibly moving the T for text at the top, so that that maybe that might have caught my attention. I don't know. So
that was great feedback, though. Thank you.
Sounds like it's just need a slight UI tweak on. This is Sarah from VR instead of just, this is your Sarah, who's Sarah. Sarah from VR.
also, I wanted to tag on what Lisa was talking about with the questions, the survey questions. I did ask the committee to Chris about what the if the numbers went down during the months of March through May. And the reason why I'm asking is because my son is going through the SILC program, and we were trying to get a hold of our counselor, and we couldn't because it took more than, that was one of the questions, are they able to get back with you within a day? Well, during those months where those counselors are trying to get job placements for students for the SILC program, you probably won't even get a response for like 2 or 3 days. Cheryl, do y'all hear about that?
We know that during the summer, when we're ramping up all the summer programs, our counselors are running fast and hard. And so one of the ways that we hope we can facilitate communication going forward is to be able to have tools that our counselors can more easily engage with while they're on the go, right? While they're on the go. But in addition, we want to continue to make sure there are backups. If a counselor's out of the office for more than a couple of days, some of our counselors have done a great job of putting contact information right in their email message to say, if you can't get me, here's my rehabilitation assistant, please reach out to them. And we want to continue to do that too. So technology plus backup systems for sure. And Mr. Chairman, I think Michelle.
I think, yeah, I was just going to comment on Sarah, just to let you know, I'm not sure where the other regions, but Region 5 has just recently done the training with the counselors on how to use Sarah. So it's still a learning process. I know they're still learning it. They have been instructed to make sure Sarah's open every day as soon as they come in to the office and check it and look at it. So you may receive more information from your counselor in the future as they're learning the process and and it is a process. I went through the training and I was kind of like, okay, it's something that we have to practice and learn. So then whenever we present it to the customer, we really have a good idea of how to present it to them. And I'm not sure, but correct me, and I thought when we did the training, I thought the customer has to agree.
Yes.
So the customer would have to be informed about Sarah and then agree to participate. But it is great because you can use Sarah if you're trying to get hold of your counselor. They'll put their schedule on Sarah, and so then you can make an appointment. Like they'll say like, I'm not available Monday, but I'm available Tuesday between 8 and noon and things like that. So it's an easier way to make appointments with your counselor if needed.
I think it is a good point, though, that like, even though they agree to it, doesn't mean they'll remember it's called Sarah.
Right.
So it's, if there was a simple message, this is Sarah, blah, blah, blah.
That's Sarah.
Letter or something. This is, you know, the VR program, Sarah.
Yeah, we should pass on the feedback to the development team for Sarah. It's a simple tweak to the UI, and I'm sure in user testing,
The ops
this is
team
not
is
the first time.
listening in, so they're taking notes.
Good. Any other questions for Lisa? If not, we'll move on to the next committee.
Wait, you forgot the CSNA. Don't let me get rid of that.
I'm sorry, it slipped my, yes.
Oh, no, it's been my baby for 6 years now. So no, we have to talk about my baby. Yeah. I'll be real quick on that. We have had 4 of our 5 planned virtual in-person hybrid meetings. The last one is tomorrow there in Lubbock. So if any of y'all have not attended or listened in on any of those, you have one more opportunity to do so. I'll go real quick as far as the online, and I know Christopher Speckard is on the line if there's any individual questions, but they're seeing the same trends that we see at Partners Resource Network. Through the first 4 thus far, we've had about 187 registrations, and we've had about 92 people attend. So it's about a 50%. That's kind of what we see when we do our virtual things as well. That is, of course, just one source of information that comes in for these CSNAs. And Texas A&M is doing the surveys out. They are the letters that went out for people to respond, and those letters were going out about the 2nd or 3rd week of April, and they will be out and continuing to try to gather data and information through the mid to end of June. So we don't have any data on that yet. They really haven't gotten to dig deeper into any of the other data that has come in so far. And then, of course, there's going to be the key informant interviews that will be going on with the counselors and managers, state office people, mental health, traumatic brain injury, things like that, where they will gather more information and metrics. So we'll have definitely more information, at least some preliminary findings, probably at our August meeting. Now that we've got some of these sources, I will say, having attended at least 3 of the last 4, we do have fewer, how do I word that? Fewer responses, and they're less passionate. That's the word we liked. Less passionate than we had in 2020. So we were kind of speculating on what might be some of those changes. And one of the things we thought about, Lisa Godwin, that we may want to make note of, because I won't be here for the next round of CSNA, most likely. I will term out, but that maybe we do the in-person ones back in the major metropolitan areas of maybe Dallas, Fort Worth, Austin, McAllen, El Paso. We went purposefully to some of the more rural areas this time. And I know that we've had a pretty low in-person attendance, but again, until we get all the data in, we won't be able to start really pulling out some of that information, but they are still getting good data and good information. So
yeah, it'll be interesting to see what came in as just survey responses versus online attendance versus in-person attendance.
right.
And the session tomorrow, it's at Life Run State Independent Living Facility, Boston Avenue,
That's it.
9:30 tomorrow.
That's right.
I've listened in on 2 of them, and I'm concerned that people are not speaking up. I mean, are you having more people attend than sign up to speak up? Obviously, because it seems to me that unless I'm missing something somewhere, one of them was about 30 minutes early. It just, ended about 30 minutes early, and then another one, it just seems like the opportunity to speak out made me wonder if people are getting the information.
Like Lisa said, yeah, it's a lot less attendance and a lot less passion from those attending. So we'll take a look.
Yeah,
Well,
but they have other opportunities other than the town halls. Glenda, they can put in responses through the internet. And, when you only have a 2-minute opportunity to speak and you don't know how many other people will be there. And I know for me, I would prefer to have some planned out, thoughtful responses if I was going to give input. So we do find that some people don't want to give input live, and they will mail that in, text it in. There are other opportunities for them to provide input, and not just at the town hall meetings. So in the past, the town hall has been one component, but it definitely has not been in my opinion, the largest source of information received for the town hall.
That's a lot of work to me to have a town hall, so little response.
And we had a discussion about that, and looking after this round, we may want to look at that and maybe not do the in-person. And I didn't know if that was part of the requirements. And it was explained to me that Texas, that a lot of other states do not do these. They do not do the town halls, and that, it would not be the committee, our committee's decision. It would be a TWC decision if they felt like that was something that had maybe outlived its usefulness. We won't really know until we see what the data looks like.
Yeah. Well, folks, we should move on. We definitely need to wait for the data to come in, so we're not theorizing.
Hey, Lisa, it's Amanda.
Customers miss. I really do. I see it as an opportunity that customers miss to speak up.
Yep.
I think we all agree that,
So little response.
yeah, I think we all agree. We just need a bit more data so we know what we're looking
I
at.
just wanted to make that point.
Thank you, Glenda.
Any other?
Okay, I just have a quick question. On the, when they get the Survey Monkey, are they able to provide input if they weren't able to speak, if they can't be there like tomorrow?
Yes.
Yes.
That's kind of
Okay,
the
I just
purpose
wanna
of
make sure.
SurveyMonkey. Yeah, it's the third avenue, in person, online, and SurveyMonkey. It's like the third way of providing responses, same basic questions.
Okay,
Okay. Lindsay,
All right. Hi, guys. Good morning.
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 All right. Let me get my notes pulled up here real quick. All right. So for the Membership and Education Committee, we have had a great couple of months. We have had some really good discussions on some new and upcoming things. One item that I did want to talk to you about was the chair and vice chair election. That will be coming up in June, and then we will have the new chair and vice chair selected in August, and then that position will start at the beginning of the November meeting. And that position will have cannot serve more than 3 consecutive years. So be expecting an email from the committee regarding when we would like the nominations back by. Right now, we've got the nominations slated to be back to us by June 30th. We will send out a Survey Monkey or some type of service like that for voting purposes. And we would also like to kind of beef it up a little bit this year and add a little bit more of a professional, maybe business side touch. And we will be adding the nominees' bios, and then also a quick reasoning why that person would want to be nominated. Just a quick note, you can nominate yourself. You can nominate somebody else. So if you'd like to nominate somebody else or yourself, send me your, when we do send the email out, you can just send a little blurb about why you think you would be a good candidate and to fulfill the position of chair or vice chair. Mr. Chairman, in observation, kind of going through this with the committee, specifically yesterday and ramping up to today, I believe in the strategic planning session that we had a parking lot item that we needed to update the bylaws. So I just wanted to make note of that. I'll circle back around with you, but I think we need to update the bylaws based on our parking lot item of chairman and vice chairman and so forth. So just wanted to kind of put that out there. So be looking for some emails from us. And then second of all, also be looking for more emails from the membership and education committee regarding reappointments and members terming out and any other person that you may know that you would like to put in our database for future members. So I know Lisa helped us out on a few people, but there are 3 members who are terming out who are not eligible for reappointment. So we need to fill those positions. So in an effort to do so, we are kind of creating a database, so to speak, of maybe past board members who we think would A, be good board members again, B, have expressed interest in coming back on the board, and then the third item would be anybody that you guys know or have a resource or, hey, I know this person out here, I think he or she would be a good addition, add them to your list, Lindsay, y'all contact them. Here's their information. So we're creating a spreadsheet, and Lisa and I, our fearless director, we're going to put the spreadsheet on SharePoint so that way we can keep it up to date. If you want to send anything directly to Lisa, feel free to. That way we can keep the spreadsheet as up to date as possible. Sometimes the appointments office has, with being in session, is not as speedy to reply, but that's okay. An action item that we did have regarding that is asking you, Mr. Chairman, Vice Chairman, and our director and the membership committee chairman and vice chairman to make a trip specifically down to the appointments office, sit with Mr. Castillo, shake his hand, get to know him face to face. That way, when we do have our upcoming appointments, not to persuade him to put our committee and our group in priority, but they've got lots of appointments coming through that office, and we have very specific needs we need filled, very specific slots we need filled. So just really working on developing a relationship with Mr. Costello and his team over there. So when we do need help, he knows who we are and we know who he is. So that's one action item I will be asking for help on. And we'll set up a date to go visit and just really develop that relationship so that they, again, know who we are. And as our positions change, I'm actually one of the ones terming out, not eligible for reappointment. So want to make that connection, open door, so we keep having somebody that's familiar with the RCT in connection with the appointments office. So.
Great idea. Great idea.
Oh, can I ask what other positions are going to be rolling off? So, like if it's a business, industry and labor spot or whatever. So if anybody's attending this who might be interested, or if any council members know somebody that might fit that category.
Yeah, if it's okay with you, I would be happy to recap that in an email and send it out to everybody. So that way everybody knows, and we have a minimum amount of members we're supposed to keep on the board, but we can exceed that. So if it's okay, I'll break that down and send that to you in an email.
Okay.
Is that okay, Karen?
Yes, I'm sorry, yeah.
Okay, perfect. Do I have any other questions so far that I can address? All right,
No, you're good.
I'll keep moving on. Education, our committee is getting a little breather on that. So thank you to our wonderful and fearless chairman, because he is working with Mr. Serna to be our speaker for the next few meetings. And then in conjunction with Ms. Cheryl, collaborating for speakers on when we're at a local level, as we transition our meetings across the state during this session. So we don't have anything to report on that, and we thank you so much for helping us out on that. Very, very much appreciated. And mentorship, Joe, our wonderful Mr. Joe, he is working with Danielle and Peggy to help transition them onto the RCT. So Joe, I don't know if you have anything to add, but that's going really well on the mentorship side.
Yes, Joe Powell here, and to my left, I've got our newest members, Peggy Smith and Danny Sosa, right? So they're doing great, adjusted well and on board.
Thanks.
Great, thank you. And then for a quick legislative update, I'd like to pass it over to Ms. Cindy Geisman. She's got some great notes for us as we wrap up this legislative session. She's going to highlight a few bullet points for us. So Cindy, I'll pass it over to you to take it away.
Sounds good. Good morning, everybody. The VR legislative team has been hard at work. We had 40 bills that we were assigned to analyze this session and 181 watch bills. A watch bill is a bill that doesn't directly impact VR, but does affect people with disabilities. So it was something we wanted to know about. Right now, we have 2 bills that have made it through both chambers of the legislature and are headed to the governor's desk for consideration. The first one is House Bill 109 by Representative Julie Johnson, and this bill requires insurance providers to cover the cost of hearing aids for a health condition, accident, or sickness. The second bill is a Senate Bill 464 by Senator Tan Parker, and this designates October 17th as Entrepreneurs with Disabilities Day. As Mr. Serna mentioned, we are fast approaching some deadlines in the House, but there are a couple other bills that still have a chance of making it to the governor's desk that we wanted to let you know about. Both of these bills were introduced by Representative Tony Rose. The first one is House Bill 728, and this sets up a statewide interagency aging services coordinating council. And the next one is House Bill 729, and this establishes a statewide intellectual and developmental disability coordinating council. Both of these councils would be, if these bills pass, would be charged with the development of a 5-year statewide plan, a biennial coordinated expenditure proposal, publication of an annual inventory of programs and services. So we're watching those bills really closely, and after the session is over, we will do a final recap on the bills that have passed that affect VR or are indirectly related to people with disabilities that we would want to know about. So that's just a quick summary. The legislative session does end on the 29th on Memorial Day, so we'll be following up with a final report after that. Any questions?
Did y'all watch or pay attention at all to, I think it was House Bill, I can't remember, 5206 regarding service dogs and fraudulently claiming dogs inappropriately as service animals?
Yes, we do have a couple of bills that we were watching related to service animals. Those bills, it doesn't look like they have much of a chance of passing at this point, given their stage in the legislative process. But yes, we were tracking those as a part of the governor's committee's recommendations.
Any other questions?
All right, and next legislative session.
Glenda, say it again.
Oh, I just said, those of us who are interested in that particular issue are gonna try again next legislative session. We got a little closer this time, but we just didn't quite make it.
Okay.
Try again.
Thank you, Miss Cindy. As always, we appreciate your monthly updates, and we know it's been a busy session, so thank you again. A few more bullet points, Mr. Chairman, that we would like to discuss with the committee or the board this morning is one thing that we would like to talk about is what is the best method of communication for everybody sitting around the table, and how we can better support communication efforts. I know for me personally, being busy, full-time mom, full-time career woman, I don't mind a text message. In fact, welcome it and love it. And so my question to you, Mr. Chairman, and members is, would you guys allow us to send text message? Would that be acceptable? And number two, is there any preferred method of communication that works best as we're trying to keep up with technology? The world is ever changing. Everybody has so many, juggling so many plates. Just wanted to see what our committee could do to better help communicate amongst each other as a board of directors.
No, this is a really nice question, and I don't think it's something we can resolve now because the amounts of different communication platforms we could utilize, we can spend an hour talking about them, right? Email, we have a rely on email now. Text, yes. Slack, Teams, so on, so on, so on. So what I propose we do is, Lindsay, let's you and I get together and we'll shortlist a number of different methods. And we will reach out with essentially a survey across the council membership with a goal of understanding what works best for people, what are things that people would prefer, what are things that people are willing to use if everybody else is, wants to use it, and what's a complete no-go for various. And we'll get a good sense for what one or two main platforms of communication we should keep.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll make a note to get back with you on that. And then we would love to welcome you to our next meeting. We've already got our next meeting scheduled for June 6th at 9 a.m. And one of the things that is on our priority list in conjunction with the strategic plan is moving forward with a new member orientation video, updating that, working with Daniel. Thank you, Daniel, for helping us with that, adding carts and sign language. So that's going to be a main task for 2024. And that's all I have to report to you, Mr. Chairman. I'm happy to answer any questions you and the team may have.
Members? All right, thank you. I know we're running a little bit behind, but we'll make up the time. Karen,
Yes.
Policy, procedure, and personnel, and don't feel rushed. This is a important committee, always with a bunch of really meaningful insights.
Thank you. Okay, so going over our agenda, we are still working from our strategic plan areas that we've identified to work on, and one of them was increasing purchasing. We've got a small group of our committee, and of course, this is open to anybody else on the council who'd be interested, are planning to meet separately to go deeper into the purchasing state rules and laws that affect the VR program to see if we can all work together to find a way to make it easier for VR to be able to purchase items for customers. So that's being planned. There was a request for the vocational rehab program to look at the length of time it takes to get home and job modifications approved. We're seeing a comment was made that there's been a noticeable delay in that process recently. There's a group of providers that are meeting, a small committee of our committee with some providers to meet with some VR staff to talk about the monitoring process and share how that works. We also talked about policies that we encourage the agency to look at increasing or changing to help in an effort to help spend more money. One of them is the amount of money is paid for maintenance. Right now in policy, that's for $55 a week. And when I joined the agency as a counselor in 1981, it was $55 a week. So we figure in the, 30 some odd years, whatever that is, that probably is one of the rates that can be raised, and for them to look at that. We also noted that there'd been an increase in people asking for training for service animals, and that's not in the policy as a service they can provide. So we suggested that they add that policy about that in there, so it can be something to be considered as well.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah,
I'm
and
excited about that.
okay, good. And there was also mention to look at the rates paid for assistive technology evaluators. Someone on our council was aware that the rate had been increased in 2010, but hadn't been, to their knowledge, raised since. We do know that VR is going through a process of a methodology. I'm not using your right terms, you know that, but a group has been hired to do an analysis of rates and the methodology to come up with a methodology for the state going forward. And we were glad to see that, but we do still feel that some of these are things that can be increased now and still wait for that report to be completed. The council did write a letter after our last meeting to the vocational rehab agency, asking them to consider raising the amount of money a family can earn before they would have to participate in the cost of services. And that letter did go to Ms. Fuller, and I asked if she could give us an update on that request.
Absolutely. It'll be quick. What I can tell you is that there were several areas that we had identified for review based on consultation with RSA when they started talking to agencies about our policies and procedures last year. You know, that also will be a focus of their review when they come see us in late August, early September. At the top of the list, and this is certainly something that our CT had provided feedback on as well, was looking at the tuition and the caps that we had, or the maximum amounts, which there could be an exception for, but nevertheless, it was additional administrative processing. So the dollar amount wasn't high in terms of cost to the program. The administrative processing was where we really were seeing, I think, some inefficiency. And so that was top of our list. We took that forward to the commission for approval. They did approve that. We've been making those policy changes. Next in line is looking at our customer participation and cost of services. So at this point, Jamie and her team, specifically Rika and her team, have asked for some information from, as you heard Mr. Serna talk earlier about I3. We know that as Jeffrey, Christopher, and team. And so they have asked for some information from that team so we can look at our data and begin to formulate a proposal to move forward with that. So I know those were the top two things on our list. We have some other things as well. So you can anticipate some updates as we move forward.
Great, thanks. And that is, I neglected to mention that is the tuition rates was something that the policy committee has talked about for a few meetings. So that is something that they've gone ahead and taken action on. I think it was effective, you guys said April, I think.
April
1, yeah. So anybody going to a state university or college in Texas, as long as they don't have other federal grants, VR will pay the full tuition amount. Thank you for the update. I appreciate that. We also are looking at employee retention. One subject area was merit raises. We're discussing the impact that this has on staff when they're doing a good job but haven't been approved a merit raise because they aren't yet accepted into a graduate program. We had a lot of discussion about that, and the parties that are over that area are going to be provided that information for further discussion. Also in this arena, we were looking at TWC has an exit interview with questions asked. We've asked to see a copy of that. And Vocational Rehab reported that they are developing their own or maybe it's additional interviewing, exit interview questions. And once that's approved, we've asked to see a copy of what that will look like. We are looking, we have a staff member or a council member who would like to work with VR on some ideas about recruiting staff through social media. That would be James. I don't know that he's on board right now. So we've asked if we could, if there's any staff members at VR who would like to work with us on that and work together. I think we're going to get some people identified to do that. And we also shared, this is on the efforts of employee morale. Some of us on our council committee had been counselors at one time and involved with the agency. And we were talking about what made working with VR so enjoyable. And one of them was a professional organization to be affiliated with. And a longstanding one is called the National Rehabilitation Association. There's state chapters, and in Texas, it's the Texas Rehabilitation Association, and it's still in existence. And they do annual conferences, they do monthly lunch and learns. There have been city chapters in the past. I haven't been as involved, so I'm not sure what's still out there. And it was a way that VR counselors got to meet other VR counselors across the state. I felt like I was learning from all of these other people I met who knew so much about vocational rehab and I didn't. And I had all these clients I had to work with and help them get to work. And I didn't have, all that knowledge. And, but I met people who did. And that's what was so valuable, is I didn't feel so alone. I had other people, and I always had my office, you always have your management, but again, not everybody had the knowledge that, you met this one, or 5 excellent people who had been in the field a long time, and they had worked maybe with a certain type of disability group, and that's who you had on your caseload. And it was just extremely valuable to be able to pick up the phone after meeting somebody and be able to call them and get some help on a case. So we recommended that the agency consider looking at that, maybe even encouraging staff to about that organization and encouraging them to go and be aware of these monthly lunch and learns and the annual conference and whatever else all that they're doing, that it might be a way to help staff have some support and enjoy the job more. So we mentioned that. We got a new training for the VR staff that has been created, and the catalog link was sent to us to review and learn a little bit more about that. We did have one hearing appeal decision. It looks like the person didn't attend, so they kind of went forward with it without the other part, the client making their point. But that was the only one to review. I think they did report there were 16 appeals filed so far this year, and only 3 formal appeals are pending. Most of them are being resolved either informally or in mediation. And Roderick brought attention to the council policy that we've asked that it be revisited, and Rika and her team are doing that. It's relating to, is it mostly just DME, durable medical equipment?
Yeah, it's just methodology of payment of insurance rates.
Yeah.
And kind of the issues there with the decline with reimbursement rates and having to provide the recommended equipment from physicians and different, customers that need certain supplies to get back to work.
And when you sent that to me and talked about it, I can remember way back, usually when you're looking at insurance paying, it was typically Medicare, Medicaid, usually paying 80%, and personal insurance usually paid more. But now with these high deductible plans and how that's changing, they're all at maybe 50%, maybe less, and that rate isn't meeting even covering the cost of the equipment for the provider, so they can't provide it to the customer. So we've asked them to go back and look at that, because that kind of business is different now than what it was before. And it's not covering the cost of the item to just accept the insurance rate. So. And I believe did I miss anything, team members? No? Okay.
Thorough. Thank you.
Thank
Any
you.
questions for Karen? Okay. Thank you much. Quick one from me. We have formed an ad hoc committee to re-energize our public engagement. It's essentially a three-pronged approach. One, we're going to modernize our RCT website, both content, look and feel, usability of it for folks coming to it. That's essentially our landing page. That's our portal. It has to be engaging. It has to kind of drive communication, and we will use it to do things like bring more folks to our meetings, advertise events that we are supporting and are participating in. Second, we are going to start our social media presence with the idea of we'll utilize Facebook and LinkedIn to once again bring some publicity to the work of our city, to the work of VR, to the work of TWIC. And essentially we will use that to have a bit of engagement. We're not going to get into public debates, of course, on Facebook. Mostly we're going to use it to put some publicity out there and drive folks to our webpage. And then the last bit is physical public engagement. So meetings and events that we're going to participate in. For example, the first item that we will actually do, this was already, I'm going to steal a bit of Lisa's thunder. There's a TWC conference in late fall, and we will actually grab a exhibitor's table there to publicize what we do, how we do it, get folks to participate in our activities and so on. Credit for this, credit for the idea is actually Mr. Joe Powell's. We saw that gap when we were in the spring TWC conference, so we're closing that gap. And we will, of course, do more physical engagement as well. This is not a digital story. So that's a good one. And committee, it's a small ad hoc committee, James, Karen, April, myself, and Lisa, of course. If anybody wants to join us, please do. It's a good effort. Any comments, thoughts, questions on that? Okay. So we're running a little bit behind. We are also at the point of a break. So I would like us to take a break now. And let's shorten that break to right about 10 minutes. And then when we come back, we'll go through the liaison reports. So let's come back right around 11:07. Very precise number, 11:07. All right, Daniel, open the line again. All right, folks, let's reconvene. Let's reconvene and let's go through the liaison reports. Karen, the floor is yours again for CAP.
Oh, okay, thank you. So for the client assistance program, I have a report in the packet, whatever we're referring to these days. Ed and I guess
virtual binder.
the virtual binder. Okay. The client assistance program met with the state office group, which includes Cheryl Fuller, Jamie Haywood, Tammy Martin, and Scott McCune to look at systemic issues. And I think what we mentioned already is the full tuition for state colleges. We're talking about the agency creating a customized employment service. They do have sent out a contract for a provider to help them with that. And I think the announcement hopefully should be sometime this year. I don't know. They're waiting for some things, but that is something that's in the works. And we're talking about client frequency of client contact and best practices for that. Right now, the policy states that no more than 180 days should pass without a counseling and guidance session between the counselor and the client. It can occur more often, and so we haven't concluded that discussion yet, so that's still ongoing. requesting a copy of the file, the way policy references it, sometimes when the client assistant program asks for a copy of a client file or even a client, sometimes they're referred to go to the open records request to get a copy. And we're asking that not have to be the case and that could just be provided by the counselor. So they're looking at that policy and seeing that can be changed. We're also looking at the individualized plan for employment. That's the document that is signed between the client and the counselor regarding services. And when COVID hit and things went virtual, the manner in which those are signed has changed. Before, the person entered their own PIN number, usually in the office on the computer, and created one. Now that more things are happening virtually, it's not really occurring that way. RSA, the Rehabilitation Services Administration, had provided some guidance in the beginning of COVID that still required that the client be the one to sign it and didn't offer virtual options in having that done. So the client assistance program is saying that it's counselors are just usually asking for permission to sign it and are signing it. But we're encountering people who have said they've never signed a plan and didn't know about it, but the plan is signed. So this is something we want to protect the integrity of the signature on the IPE and protect the client as well as the counselor. So it doesn't appear that it was fraudulently signed or signed without the client's knowledge. So we are trying to discuss ways to make sure that that is protected.
So, yeah, I mean, there's so many options now with DocuSign, Adobe
Exactly.
lets you sign. And as long as the agency has a license copy for the request to go through, the other person doesn't have to pay for a license, like on DocuSign.
Right.
So you just have to be able to download the app or go to the website.
Well, I think VR had said that you do have DocuSign for some documents, but the IPE is not one of them.
That has to be in person, physical ink signature.
RSA's guidance said it needed to be in person or you mail it, they sign it and mail it back.
So physical ink signature.
Yes. But I think it would, a DocuSign.
Because you can even draw your
Yeah, it's a
signature on.
signature still,
So, I mean,
but granting
Maybe we can-
permission is the problem.
I mean, in theory,
Yeah.
if it's something for April, but it's sent to me, I can sign for you.
Oh, with the DocuSign?
Yeah, as long as it goes to whatever email address that person can sign. So there's potentially.
there might
areas.
be options that are IP required.
Scott and our program operations was also working through the process of our counselors being able to get control to the
Yeah.
customer
Yeah, with the screen.
with the screen, and then the customer enters their PIN,
That
and
makes
then
sense.
the counselor takes control back. So
Oh, yeah, that would be great. Because then it's being witnessed, basically.
that's right. So that, but that way the customers enter their
Right,
PIN,
right.
and then the counselor can take control back of the team sessions. So I know Scott was, and his team were working on that. I can't remember where they are, but certainly.
Well,
something-
so, I mean, if it's being snail mailed to them, anyone could still sign that, just like anyone could just sign it off.
Well, that's RSA's guidance about it, is if they aren't there in person to sign it, then you would mail it to them to sign. But, you could also, email it, print it, sign it, scan it back in, you could do it that way and still get it done. The only, problem I think that Scott had mentioned is giving the control of the computer to the customer. There was some concern that they might go into other things, the counselor doesn't have the control back of their computer and where the other person may go. So,
Maybe there's an application that can be used.
He was working on that with our IT folks.
still, okay, yeah, so,
I
Yeah.
think he's monitoring, so he'll follow up and give us an update.
I think it's gotten so comfortable that we actually had, and this will remain nameless, a counselor who was under the impression she could enter the PIN number.
On behalf of the customer.
Yeah, and didn't realize that, it's become that comfortable is my point. And just, they have the PIN numbers and they're just entering it thinking this is okay. And it's not okay. And that's why we're trying to, get it back to where it should only be the client or the customer doing it.
Makes sense, makes sense. Karen, what else?
Does it?
Okay. Any questions for Karen on CAP? Okay. Aggie,
All right, thank you.
CRP.
Yes. So I have, or we, the providers, continue to have the VR provider statewide calls each quarter. And then each region has a provider representative that can host local or regional provider meetings. And then we take the information gained from those regional meetings, and that helps build the agenda for the statewide calls. One of the great additions to the statewide calls have been a training, using it as a training platform. So as changes come through the new standards, or like when Chapter 3 was updated, they did some recorded videos so that all the providers had up-to-date training, and that made a huge difference. It's a great way to get at least as much of the information out at one time as possible. So I think those calls are very well attended. The last statewide provider meeting was on February 7th, and then the next one is on May 13th. I also met with Ms. Woodley, the program specialist with VR, and the other regional representatives, and she did a demo of the new provider resource page that will go live on the website. And that's just been a huge increase, probably for improvement. It's probably one of those things we didn't know how useful it could be until we saw, the changes that they're proposing. So I think that will be very helpful. I believe there was a part on there that also will help somebody go through the contracting process. So maybe that's a way to make that process easier for somebody looking to become a provider. So anyway, I think that will be a very good resource for providers as well. And then one thing that I met with Mr. Ramirez and Sue Ellen, Ms. Woodley, was to talk about the credentialing process for staff or new providers. In order to provide any type of billable service, you have to have a credential that currently earned through UNT-WISE. And not all the classes are on demand. And so the first class you can come in, and you can do that anytime, it's on demand. The rest of them, they have to be scheduled, and then they last, I think it's 6 or 7 weeks, and then you take the next one. So there is quite a delay, which makes it hard for providers to meet the business needs and to provide the services to the customers because they don't have those credentials. The workaround for it is that you can apply for a temporary credential waiver, which is just a form you fill out, and it goes to regional and then it goes to the state office. There's been a lot of work on that to streamline that process so that it comes back quicker. But I still just kind of want to keep looking at it. Is that the most streamlined process? Is that the best process? Is there some way that, we can continue to look at, how the classes are offered or how long they are? It's a delicate balance because we want the quality. We want those quality services. You want those credentials. So that's really important. But as a provider, especially with as much turnover as everybody has had, it's painful to wait 3 to 4 months to pay for somebody to have the credentials to have them leave 2 months later. And so that's a business struggle as well. So again, just something that I want to kind of keep looking at and seeing if there's a better or more streamlined process. And Karen, I think you mentioned the meeting coming up with the monitoring division and a small provider group. I think that's going to be incredible. Thank you to Jamie and James for putting that together. That will be very helpful. And I hope there's a way that we can take what we've learned and either incorporate it into a statewide call or somehow get that information out to the other providers. Because we often, we learn, the monitoring process is very important, but it's also hard for providers to manage if it's a last minute, getting them the information that used to come to the offices and now they're virtual. And so sending them all the documents and just what that looks like. So anyway, thank you. I think that would be great. And then just our next provider call is May 13th.
That's a Saturday.
Oh, then it's not May 13th. May 15th, right? Yeah, the wrong day. It's a Tuesday, I think.
16.
Scratch that. It's in May.
Mid-May.
16th.
It's the 16th.
The 16th.
Thanks,
Andrew. Thank you. Yes, yes.
Thanks, Peggy. Any questions for Peggy on CRP? Okay, this was a cover on PRM, Partner Resource Network.
Again, I'm back. All of our full report for all 4 of the Texas PTI projects is in your virtual binder, but I'll just give a few snapshots. Of course, we're very busy helping families of children with disabilities to navigate the educational process. So in that last quarter that's in the binder, as an organization across the state, we had over 175 webinars or workshops for our families to help them become better educated and knowledgeable about the process. We had over 50,000 units of INR, and that is information and resources, whether that be a print material or other information to our families and professionals that we work with to help them understand the special education process. We had over 6,000 technical assistance units, and those are a little deeper dive when we get in and working with families. INR could be a fact sheet, could be something to just a key takeaway, how to help with the process, but technical assistance is specific to that family or situation or whatever may be happening. We've attended over 80 IEP meetings with families. That is not what we are funded to do. It is a very small portion of what we do, but we do know that some of our families do need additional assistance and some support in the IEP meetings. So we've attended over 80 of those. We have regional conferences in each ESC region so that families can come get information from great collaborative speakers. And we had 4 of those in the last quarter. We are doing, like a lot of organizations, we're trying our best to return to in-person events while being very aware and sensitive to some of our families, our parents of children that are medically fragile, and coming in person could be detrimental. So we're doing a lot of hybrid events, such as meetings like this, where we are in person but streaming virtually. And we're doing that with a lot of our conferences, workshops as well. We are also working to empower our youth with disabilities. As parents, we won't always be here. We want our children to be able to advocate on their own behalf. So we have provided over 115 workshops, learning labs, webinars for our youth with disabilities so they can become the best self-advocate on their own behalf in the last quarter. We've provided over 4,000 units of INR for our youth and 940 technical assistance to our youth with disabilities. We've attended 11 IEP meetings with our parents and youth. We are trying to make sure that the youth that we're here meeting about is present in the room and is giving input into their educational life and what they want to do after they attend school. So we're gaining ground on that. We've collaborated with over 122 different events with different providers, TEA, disability rights, We're always looking to work with organizations to provide the best and most accurate information for the families and youth that we serve. For the next upcoming quarter that we're partially into now, we've got over 100 webinars and workshops for parents, 29 workshops, webinars, and trainings for youth, 2 regional symposiums, and then at least 2 of the summer camps will be taking place in June. Each of the 4 projects has a youth summer camp that we put on in either June, July, or August, similar to regional conferences for our parents, except these sessions are all geared towards serving our transition aged youth, ages 14 to 26. We don't want it to be a boring webinar kind of thing. So some of it is fun, but at the same time, we're, working on their social activities. We've got TWC that's a partner in a lot of those and bringing in what the navigation looks like in the transition services. So a lot going on. There's full breakdown and details in the virtual binder. But does anybody have any questions for me about the report from your Parent Training and Information Center?
Lisa, thank you so much.
Thank
Thanks so much. Good luck with that annual report.
Yeah, annual report due today too, so that's fun.
Good luck, good luck, good luck. Good
Thank
luck.
y'all.
April Clarice.
Yes,
So,
Mr. Chair. Hope everybody is good today. It has been a busy quarter for our organization, Texas State Independent Living Council. I will give you the highlights of my report. Full report is in the binder. First of all, we've had some transition. Our executive director, Eva Story, his last day with us was March 31st. Our organization is going to continue to search for a permanent executive director. Meanwhile, April Flores, as chair, has stepped in and I'm running the day-to-day work with our staff and ongoing processes for our quarterly meetings and any state plan amendments and that such. We have retained 3 staff members and have brought on a financial consultant to run that, because we've also had several staff members leave as well. So, but my vice chair's been very supportive, and he's also stepped up into a supportive leadership role as I'm running the day-to-day organization. Next, let's see here. We do have several projects going on. Our PAL project, which is Peer Assistance Leadership Program, is going to be wrapping up this year. Our independent living network really thrives in the peer-to-peer support, and this is no different with this project and the 2 centers that participated in it. Our inclusive services for survivors in Texas. This is an exciting project that we are partners with TASA with, and this project for us is all about making services for people, survivors of sexual assault, having services that are more accessible to them. And so the independent living network through the Texas SILC will be able to partner with them, and so that we can help make their services more accessible, and we can help our partners understand what accessibility and accommodations are. It's an exciting partnership that's underway, and we're very excited about it. We also have a public health workforce work plan project that's just now starting, and it's going to include training materials that'll go out to our centers it'll be like a train the trainer to the centers, and then the centers can provide that training. It's going to be all COVID related, and not just not just vaccine related, but testing related, making things more accessible and just, educating our consumers. Our state plan for independent living, that's always an ongoing process for us. It's usually a 3-year process. We're currently, our federal partners, ACL, have extended an opportunity for every state to extend the state plan by a year, which is the process that we're about to request an amendment to extend our spill period. Spill being state plan for independent living by 1 year. So our state plan is ending in September of 23, will end in September of 24. And then we'll go back into a 3-year spill cycle, a state plan cycle at that point through 27. We always encourage public comment on that. The public comment information is on my report and can be sent to me at april@txsilc.org. And we also will accept questions about our state plan through our main phone number as well. Our next meeting is May 25th. And it will be from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Public comment will be accepted at 4 p.m. And we encourage anyone to come in and participate. Public comment being on our state plan or anything within our network, and we're happy and excited to share that time with anybody who would like to participate with that. What questions does the council have for me today?
Are you guys doing a national search for your director, or is it local?
So we just started the process. We have competitive bids out right now for some recruitment agencies.
Okay.
So we've had a lot of transition in the last 6 months, so it kind of slowed down the process.
Yeah.
But so once we select our recruitment agency, if that is the decision, we have a committee set up, a search and a transition committee set up for this process. So once they select how we're gonna hire them, if that's a recruitment agency, if that is the decision our council decides to go, then that will be. But yes, we're willing to recruit nationwide, as long as they're willing to move to Texas.
Sure. Makes sense. Any other questions for April?
Shame you're not busy.
I have a couple things on my plate, so. Our council appreciates the partnership with that. I guess I should also add, it's not in my report. I term off with the SILC in October. So we are currently recruiting for us to backfill my position onto the council. And Mr. Powell has agreed to come to our quarterly meeting on May 25th to speak to my council and just let him know how wonderful the leadership is on this council and how great it is going to be for them, what an easy transition is going to be. Mr. Powell's going to take care of them. So we are self-aware of that. We're a little bit behind the 8 ball on that, but we will get someone excited to be a part of this organization.
Okay, good. Thank you, April.
Thank you.
Ms. Emily Robinson, TEA, Texas Education Agency.
Okay, so he's a voice interpreter. Hello, I'm Emily Robinson, and I'm speaking through a sign language interpreter. And I have updated information from TEA. So I have Texas Parents Involvement Survey that we sent out specifically to local education agencies, LEA. And we're trying to gather information related to how to improve services for students in special education. And so that survey is April 10th through May the 19th. And we've got some information on my report. You can click on the virtual binder if you'd like to look at that for more detailed information.
Can you speak up a little bit? I don't know, I'm trying to-
Okay, so, and then next, we also have school for mental health related, people with mental health related disabilities and deaf blindness. And so we've been working on that related to mental health, and we just started working on this, and that's going to be ongoing. We're going to add more information on our database. And so there's a link that you can access that on my report as well. And then next, we have transition, the route. So the next steps towards independent living skills, strategies for that, and the framework that we're working on to develop those skills for independence as people become adults, for people with individuals with disabilities. So for the families using these tools, we'd like for them to look back and see their children's successes and consider those as well as their concerns, and partner with their teachers. And the teachers can use these tools as well. Also, we can use that to identify any gaps, and then we can add those gaps to fill those in on the IEP to work on those skills. So this is a resource. We're splitting that up by age groups from birth all the way to age 21. And so it's going to be really nice to be able to see, to keep track of progress, and also to keep track of any gaps, so we can catch any gaps that exist early on. Any questions for me?
Very thorough. Any questions or comments from council members? Emily, thank you.
Sure.
Lindsay, update on TWIC?
Hi, good morning again, guys. The TWIC is doing really well. Thank you. We had our last meeting and in March, and the council received a report from the Apprenticeship Training and Advisory Committee, and that committee receives updates on Chapter 133 apprenticeship training programs from the Texas Workforce Council and work-based learning programs from the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board and federal apprenticeship initiatives from the DOL. The committee recommended and the council took action to approve the 2024 fiscal year funding formula recommendations for apprenticeship training programs. And the council members also heard briefings from local workforce development boards, the Texas 88th legislative session, the strategic planning committee, and the draft of the Texas Workforce System strategic plan for years 24 through 31. Council members considered the next steps in the considered the next system strategic plan for approval to post for a 30-day public comment, which will begin in June. And the final plan will be considered for approval by the council in September, and then subsequently sent to the governor for further action. After the business meeting, Ms. Desi Holmes presented information on TWC's apprenticeship programs and initiatives. And then our acting chairman, Mr. Rick Rhodes, he also noted a couple of items, including apprenticeship brochures for students, employers, and local education agencies. And he's recently been appointed as the next chair for our council. So we're happy to have Mr. Rhodes filling in for a bit and being appointed as our next chair. Will be a great leader for us. We're very happy for him and the council. We will meet again next month in June on Friday, June 16th in Austin. And that's all I have.
Any questions or comments for Ms. Gislin? Lindsay, thank you. Let's spend a very short amount of time on the boring council business. First item, approval of February minutes. The minutes are up in our virtual binder. I'd like to propose a motion to approve them as is. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Who's for? Yeas? Any nays? Motion carries. Meetings are approved as is. Lisa, any highlights on the budget report? The budget is also in the virtual binder. Anything of note?
Yeah, we're right on target. We still have a balance of $30,427. So I think you're good for the year.
We're like literally halfway. Almost perfect track. Okay. We have our annual, our second annual planning meeting scheduled for, I believe, September, Lisa?
Yes, September the 18th and 19th is what we're looking at. The committee that's working on that is we're still working on a location. We thought we had secured something in Waco, but it appears there was some contract concerns. So they're now looking at possibly College Station as a place to hold, but it's still open right now. They're still working on it. Karen, do you want to?
Well, I think, I'm glad you mentioned that. It'd be nice to know what the council members think of College Station. Is that an easy location to get to? That was the only question I have.
I will Zoom.
Okay.
And the idea was, what are we thinking, 2 days, day and a half?
A day and a half.
Day and a half.
No, college is a good place.
So we were trying to find a location. The ideal location was that has an airport that's not too far that you could Uber or Lyft to if need be, or had a hotel had a shuttle to and from the airport. Also a hotel that had where we could stay there, where they had big enough conference rooms with breakout rooms and had a restaurant on site. So that was just trying to make sure everything was right there. And I think the airport, if they only have flights to Dallas, that's the only thing. You would have to go through Dallas. And there's only like 3 flights a day, but it is only 4 miles from the hotel. And they do provide shuttle service.
Was the other alternative potentially Dallas, Fort Worth?
We did talk about Dallas, Fort Worth area. The only concern flag that threw up to me was the places that were being offered were in Fort Worth. So to go from DFW Airport, if you didn't get a rental car, that shuttle service to Fort Worth to a hotel, if there might be concerns, if anybody had concerns with getting from the DFW Airport to the Fort Worth area for.
Might be a little bit easier to do Fort Worth than College Station.
Yeah, whoever's flying is gonna have to fly to Dallas, then fly to College Station if you're flying. Yeah. That's just.
I think that may be kind of a logistical problem if you are flying. And was it a reason why we're doing it in College Station?
No, so the conference and planning I'm working with TWC conference and planning. When we go out like this to a hotel where we're having the conference room and stuff, they have to be the ones to plan it for us because it has to go through legal for the contract. And that was just what he had suggested. Original suggestion was Waco, kind of centrally located for everybody, and then that fell through. So then the next suggestion was, based on our needs, he had suggested College Station. And then again, like I said, I think there was 2 places in Fort Worth.
Let's go back and kind of ask them to see what else they can suggest.
And it's up to you guys. I mean, it can be anywhere. It doesn't have to be just.
I know Fort Worth is not a far drive from DFW.
No, it's a
Right, but there are several members, I think, that do not drive, so they would have to Uber, Lyft, or that sort of thing, so that
It's
would
still
be.
easier than trying to College Station. It's just much better
locations around
infrastructure.
Yes, April, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I mean, it doesn't matter where I fly, I always have to go through Dallas, so I'm pretty proficient at that, but I can see why that would cause problems. My other thing I was gonna suggest, if we do decide to go with College Station, I have a there with our center there in College Station that they would be happy to give advice on transportation Or they probably partner with us on anything else we might need assistance with, or just, be able to give us the local information on where to eat and things to do, or, any other technical assistance we might need. So I was just gonna offer that.
Let's do the following. So College Station, right? Let's flesh out the Fort Worth options and let's see if they can come up with something else. So let's have a short list of say 2 or 3 and email out to the council members and we'll take a vote on what's less disruptive and more convenient.
So you want, just so I understand, we want to look at the Fort Worth locations.
Fort Worth, preferably if it's not Fort Worth, but somewhere, what do you call it, mid-cities. So between Fort Worth and Dallas, there's a bunch of stuff there, kind of a good 50-mile chunk where there's stuff there, close to the airport. College Station, okay, that's option 2. See if they can suggest option 3. So we'll have a little bit of a short list. And we'll take a look and take a vote. What's more convenient for everybody? Nice democratic approach rather than somebody saying, all right, College Station.
Yeah, that sounds great. And just, would you like me to do the vote by Survey Monkey? Because it is going to be something we're going to have to do fairly quickly to get the contract under.
I think Survey Monkey and give people a 48-hour deadline, respond or live with their repercussions. Cool. And speaking of locations and meetings, we have a couple of meetings coming up. One in August, one in November. Our cadence is 2 meetings in Austin, 2 meetings somewhere outside of Austin. So the August meeting proposal is to hold it in Austin in our usual kind of a mothership location. And to do November in Houston. Is that region 3? And the thought is to hold the November session same week as the TWC conference in Houston. So the folks on the council get a chance to attend the TWC conference and the meeting kind of in one trip. Thoughts? First, Austin in August. Anybody opposes? Done. And that's the first week of August, yeah, whatever the Thursday and Friday is. Any thoughts on Houston in I think it would have to be the last week of November, right? To coincide with the TWC conference.
That's on the calendar. I didn't know what dates we're talking about.
So just so I'm also on the same page, the November when we were discussing November the 27th and doing a 1-day meeting, if I'm correct, like we did in San Antonio, when we do the breakouts at another time, and then and just individually.
What are the dates for the TWC conference?
The pre-conference is Tuesday and Wednesday, the 28th and 29th, and then the conference, which the pre-conference is the VR portion. And then the conference itself starts on half day, the 29th, the 30th, and then the 1st.
Yeah. So the thought is, and folks, for those that haven't been to the TWC conference or pre-conference, highly recommend it, especially the pre-conference parts. Very, very, very good opportunity. So the thought is we would hold committee meetings week prior at the discretion of the committee chairs, which day, when they want to do it, and then we have a 1-day meeting on Monday, the 27th. And then folks that are interested can stay over for the TWC conference and then the conference. Thoughts?
Are you also hoping if we have a booth at the TWC conference that members would be manning the booth?
Yes, yes. Looking for volunteers to man the booth for part of the conference.
That would be on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday is when the booth would be set up. And on the, just a quick word up as well, is we're looking at letting everyone, well, we stay at the same hotel room wise where the conference is held, but the RCT meeting would be held at the regional office. I'm working with Susan Lindsay in Region 5, Regional Director, and she's already secured us a room and she's super excited to hold that. She was upset she didn't get this meeting. But so she's already got a room set up on Timmons Lane in Houston at that office. And again, that would just be the one-day meeting. So we would stay at the same hotel, but then we would go off-site for the Monday meeting. But then the conferences would be held at the same hotel where we'd be staying.
Is everybody okay with that?
Works better for me, actually.
Any other strong opinions, better ideas, voices of position?
Does it work for the VR liaisons and stuff? For that? Okay.
Thanks.
And I've already secured Daniel and Sarah, so we'll get over there. They're already gonna be there, so I'm like, you're working us on that day.
To be clear, this was not a done deal. This is just the interaction.
Yes.
All right, folks, settled. August in Austin and first week of August and 27th in Houston. Okay. This concludes the boring council business. Let's get back to some of the more, shall we say, work that impacts our stakeholders, our customers. Jamie, floor is yours, and let's focus on the comprehensive rate review process. Let's give it due justice. If you need to push back the work-based learning percentage disabilities to the next session, we will do so. The rate review is clearly a lot of passion behind it, so let's give it the full.
Sure. All right. So Daniel, we'll start on slide 4.
Okay.
So back in the fall, we contracted with Public Consulting Group, otherwise known as PCG, which we refer to them, to perform the analysis of the fee structure, the associated fee payment or payment fees that we use to, or that providers use, we use to pay our providers for the services that they perform for our customers. So just an overview of what the fee analysis project is. Andrew and his team, as well as Kevin Warren, have been working directly with PCG once a week. They meet with them every Friday and have been since this project started. So lots of work going on there. They have completed their data collection, PCG, which has involved collecting a lot of data from our program, as you can imagine, rates, and expenditure data, services. So they've collected a lot of data from VR. They've also collected data from providers on their costs, things like salary and fringe benefits, any type of personnel cost. They've collected administrative cost information, travel information from providers. They have also conducted peer state interviews with New York, Florida, Colorado, Arizona, Illinois, California, and Oklahoma. So they've conducted interviews with some of our peer states and collected some of the same data that they're collecting from us. They've also interviewed our staff. They've interviewed some management and some of our staff that work with providers. They have also interviewed some of the RSA staff to get their insight on fees. And so they have collected all of this information through pulling data, interviews, and survey information. And right now what they're doing is they're currently processing and analyzing that data in order to get ready to provide us a draft report. And so we're anxiously awaiting a draft report. Oh, sorry, Daniel.
One more?
Let's say next slide, but I already talked through that one, so. I just wanted to define, you go back over. Okay. I just wanted to define analysis because the purpose of the project says they will perform an analysis. So I wanted to give you guys an idea of what the analysis meant. So it involves that collecting that data and reviewing that data, as well as collecting data through interviews and through surveys. So that's what I just talked about.
Jamie, one question is, So for any provider, this is all about opportunity costs. They can do this, they can do that. One of the things they can do is they can go and offer services, some of the private sector, right? Is there, as part of this, is there an effort to not just look into what the other states are paying or what else is happening in the public sector here, but also what is happening in the private sector, so the rates can be competitive, not just versus what's happening in the public sector, but also are they competitive with what those providers could be doing just in general?
So I'll phone a friend in just a second, in my friend Andrew, who's been working with them. I don't know the answer to public and private, but I do know they're looking at labor market information on the state and national level. They're looking at the economic climate. So, you know, we mentioned inflation yesterday. They're looking at service costs around the country and the state. Andrew, do you have an idea or know if it's public and private, or are they, I know it mentioned in the contract that they're looking at other state agencies, not just VR, but I don't remember it mentioning private.
Not specifically private, but I feel we're going to get a lot of information regarding that via the labor and market research, and also some of the surveys that the providers had to do included some private pay customers. So we might get some valuable information from that sector. But I feel like the labor and the market research might give us that public information. Not that private pay, sorry.
Yeah, it'd be, I think, very important to really tease it out and not be settling for, oh, our rates seem to be competitive based on this chunk of data, and it kind of ignore everything else. Right, so it'd be important to set up the analysis the right way to tease that out.
We can follow up to see, to get more specifics on what private fees may be analyzed within the scope.
Because that's, I mean, that's a good point, because we lose providers going to those other places that pay more. And, you know, you're mentioning that my husband does consulting, and he does charge a different amount of rate if it's clerical work, or, you know, depending on, you know, that, or as opposed to the work he directly does with the client. You know, there's a different rate for what you charge, and then of course for travel. So yeah, that's a good point.
Okay. We can follow up since they're in the analysis stage right now, and seek clarification on specifically if there were any private fees that they used, because they didn't just use, you know, the information we gave them, and can follow up with you and let you know.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit beyond that. So hypothetical provider, I don't want to pick an enemy here, so hypothetical provider could provide counseling services for a VR customer, for example. Or they could go and do, I don't know, psychology for Highland Park in Dallas. So there's a choice that that provider makes. And part of it is driven by their mission, by their values, and so on. Part of it is really driven by economics, right? So I think it's beyond private fees. I think it's also looking to what else that folks in those positions and with those skill sets, what else would they be doing? And are our rates competitive, or at least close enough to be competitive versus those other activities? And potentially some of those labor statistics that were mentioned, they may give us that, but we have to structure the analysis to acknowledge that. So it's not just public fees and private fees for those services, it's also what could folks with those skill sets be making in other endeavors.
Mr. Chairman, I think that's a great point. One of the things I'm thinking through is the scope of work for the contract. So PCG is going to be working within that defined scope, where where we're really asking them to look across like entities. For the most part, are we consistent with other state agencies, with other VR agencies, and then labor market on the whole? There is some ability for us to ask them to do some additional work, but they are looking through a long list of different types of rates that we have. So we have a lot of different rates. And so it may be based on the information we get back from them about what is readily available to them in their research regarding private sector rates for some of these. We may be able to do a deeper dive based on, I think we've built in a little bit of extra, we can ask for some extra analysis on something, so we can build that into the contract. I just wanted to point out two things. One, we've got a scope of work we've agreed to in the contract, and two, there's a little room in there for some deeper dive that we may be able to do to follow up more on what you said.
Yeah, no, that's fair. So if there's a little bit of a, shall we say, slush buffer in there, let's take it for that. And if there isn't, that's not enough, then let's see, can we extend scope, right? Can we ask them to do a bit more analysis? Have them throw out as a number to us, and it definitely would be money well spent, right? Because I think the providers that are dropping out, they're not going to New Mexico.
Right.
Right, they're just going to do something else in the same region, right? So
Right.
we're going to miss a great opportunity if we don't look at that.
Sure.
So,
I think we have a couple.
and
of
if you have to expand the scope of content, it would make sense to throw another few grand in there, but to get truly meaningful data that will help stop some of this provider attrition that we're seeing.
We may be getting what we're looking for here. So that's very possible. We'll take that look first.
Yes.
And then if it is outside of the current scope of the contract or the additional specialized follow-up we built in, then there could be a stage 2 procurement to go further. Certainly, we may find that we need to do some additional research. Absolutely.
It would definitely be money well spent. Yeah, absolutely.
I was gonna
Extend
say we have a
scope.
couple of opportunities to see what's already provided in the analysis, because they've got their primary sources of data, and then they were going to refer to secondary and tertiary sources of data. So I want to see what that looks like first, and then we can explore extending it. So I wanted to share with you what analysis meant in this project. And I think I got all of the analysis. So sorry, I was talking over that slide. Next slide, Daniel. Thank you. Again, they're analyzing right now. We expect a final report by July 31st, but we expect our draft in the middle of June. And this is an overview of what that report's going to look like. Of course, they're going to synthesize all of the analysis and provide us their options and recommendations for our fee structure and provider compensation, possible modifications, enhancements, and/or changes. And they use a rate decision matrix that they're going to be sharing with us as part of also teaching us about their methodology, about how and why they are recommending the rates that they are recommending. And they are going to also recommend a methodology, a specific methodology for us to be able to use on an annual basis for our own team to analyze the fees and the fee structure and do our own rate review in-house. So they're going to share the recommendations for fees, as well as be teaching us at the same time how we can do that ourselves in-house moving forward. And then they're also going to recommend some strategies for augmenting some of the provider base in underserved areas of the state. So they're looking at different geographical parts of the state to see if there are opportunities that maybe we can provide things like payment incentives to help increase the providers in those areas. And then lastly, on the last slide, it almost didn't fit, but I squished it on there because I knew this was going to be A question is, what services are being looked at? What service fees are being looked at? So I apologize for all the words on one slide, but this is, these are the services that are in project scope right now that are being looked at. So I don't necessarily, am I gonna read them all to you?
Are we getting a copy of this PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay, then I won't try to write it down. I can pull it up. Thank you.
So I'll let you look at that really quickly and then. Sure. So the main, I'll give you the umbrellas. The main one are the employment services. Let me make my slide bigger here. My employment services, which includes things like work readiness service, work experience, pre-ex, self-employment, blind and visually impaired services, so orientation and mobility services, assistive technology, independent living services for older individuals who are blind. Another umbrella is special populations, so hearing aids and related accessories, wellness recovery action plans, benefits planning. And then there's a little laundry list of consultants there at the end: dental, medical, psychological, and we've also got assistive and rehab technology and durable medical equipment. So lots of services in this one project that they're taking a look at.
Oh, very thorough, very thorough. It's just the point I made earlier. Right, that local psychological consultants could be local, so doing services for VR customers, or they could just go do something in the private sector and make a lot more money. So, you know, at some point, the financial incentive outweighs the emotional and the mission objectives.
And the great thing about that is that the PCG is doing the interviews. It's not just the survey tools they're using to collect the quantitative data, it's that qualitative data they're collecting through the interviews. So I think the interviews will give a lot of insight on the comments that we're.
Yeah, it's just sometimes studies like this, depending on how the objectives are defined, instead of ending up of the race to find the right market rate, and it ends up being the race to the bottom to see what's the lowest rate that people are willing to take. Because somebody will take a low rate. We're just not gonna have a lot of providers there. So I think it's important. So right now they're in stages of analysis, yeah. But it's important that whoever's curating them, just steer them the right way, so they don't take us the race to the bottom rate. And instead, it's the race to the true market rate.
Yes, so I would say that in our the scope of work and in the contract, it's all about being competitive. And so that's a word that's used quite frequently. And so hopefully that we're all on the same page with what competitive means. But I'm sure as Andrew's listening, he'll make sure that, as we discuss getting into the draft report, the final report, that, our expectation is not necessarily what's the lowest rate, it's what's competitive. So that was made very clear in the RFP and in the initial discussions.
Absolutely, because our idea of competitive, at least my idea of competitive, is not to be competitive with Oklahoma or New Mexico VR services. It's not to be competitive with the other state services in Texas. It's to be competitive at, the market. We live in a capitalist society. It's free market decides ultimately what people choose to do. All right, I'll get off my soapbox.
Oh, that's okay. We were very pleased, which obviously they were awarded the RFP, but they're doing a lot of market analysis. So I'll be happy to share that when we have that in our report form, so you can see how far that market expanded.
Any thoughts on this rate study from the audience, from the council members? Candace, Jonathan? Thank you for good work. Thank you for doing that.
Excited to see the final product too.
Hugely.
We are too.
Hugely.
I'm very pleased that they're teaching you how to do the internal rate review so that you have that system. Because I think that was a key thing the rates didn't get looked at for a very long time. And so putting this in place, I think will make a big difference too.
Andrew and his team will be working on, just like Rick and her team are working on a policy schedule. Andrew and his team will work on our rate review schedule that we put in build within our system as an SOP so that it's something that we do. We make sure we do.
Do you have a deadline or a projected completion date as far as when all of this is anticipated to be
Implemented? Great question. So after we analyze or after we receive the report, we have a certain amount of time to review it as an agency and decide, you know, if we're going to take what recommendations and what we're going to move forward with. And then we will go to work with our policy team to update our policy. And then all policy that has fee changes will have to be commission, will go for commission action, which can take about, the whole process for commission action can take about 12 weeks. So trying to do the math in my head. Let's see, if we get a final report in July, we make a decision by the end of August. I would anticipate maybe we could probably get it to commission action before the end of the year.
Okay.
Am I doing the timeline in my head right, Cheryl? So probably, I think probably before the end of this calendar year, based on the process that we have to go through with fees specifically when we update those in policy.
I know that I'm one of the ones that really wants to see the assistive technology issues and services to blind and visually impaired. I mean, all of those kind of, actually, all of the ones you mentioned review, but particularly the one that was saying that contracts for evaluators and trainers haven't been changed since 2010. And so I'm glad to see that's being reviewed.
Any more questions? We're
On the rates.
available, and Andrew's team's available. So just like to say thanks to his team also. They've done the heavy lifting. So you know, shout out to Andrew and his team who are on this week.
Is it Andrew Ramirez?
Yes.
Andrew, this was a brilliant effort. Thank you. Thank you on behalf of the council.
Thank you.
Jamie, we have about 15 minutes. Do you want to give us a bit of a teaser, a bit of a kind of a highlights on the work-based learnings for students with disabilities project?
Sure. So slide 2. Just wanted to highlight some of the work-based learning that's going on in VR, specifically with Erin and her team, Erin Wilder, who's the manager of the transition team. So we kicked off our SEAL 2023 in March by having forums with the workforce boards, getting them geared up for the summer. And summer's right around the corner. And back on the news this morning, I heard Lubbock, we're almost out of school. They were talking about swimming pools around Lubbock. So summer's right around the corner. So Summer Earn and Learn, also known as SEAL, is headed our way. Paid work experience, that's year round. What makes paid work experience unique is that this is well, this is not the unique part, but it's another board partnership that provides work skills and work experience, but this is a paid opportunity for our students. And so that's what makes this different from just work experience. So this is a year-round work-based learning opportunity that we provide to students, and is very popular. And then one of the highlights for work-based learning is the project that we are in partnership with Texas A&M's Center on Disability Development. This is a project where LEAs from across the state can, with community involvement, create a work-based learning project that's very specific to the needs of their community. In fact, when they're creating this project, there are community stakeholders involved in the creation of those projects. And what they do is they submit an application to A&M, and then in partnership with us, we review that application. Our team is specifically looking for those pre-ETS criteria, and between A&M and VR, they go through that process, and to date, 25 applications have been accepted to implement those work-based learning projects. And I'm happy to report in all 6 regions. So we've got work-based learning opportunities through this initiative in all 6 regions. And there's another 25 sitting in the pipeline ready to be reviewed. Erin said it's picking up speed because they're doing a really good job of marketing through lots of different avenues. And we're there to help support financially by providing kind of a startup, if you will, of $10,000 to help them get that project off the ground and going in their LEA. And then A&M, we also help A&M out with funding for the administrative work associated with this project. And so that's also why it's important that we're in the review process, the application review process, so that we can make sure that it's hitting the pre-ETS requirements. So, and then A&M also provides technical assistance, logistics support, outcome expectations and reporting. And the reason why I mentioned that and wanted to bring that up is because this has been a really successful initiative and project for our students and for our community stakeholders, because the LEAs are beginning to design this very specifically for their community, and they're they're doing the heavy lift, creating the specific project, and then A&M is there to assist. And so it's not a heavy lift for our counselors. And so it's been a really successful initiative that hasn't put an increased burden on our staff. It's something that's very that's still very successful.
So do you have more details? Like, is this going to be like a summer 12-week program? Is it, are these going to be, they're not A&M students? I'm just not, I know A&M has other programs too, and I don't want to get it confused.
These are secondary, so high schools. Erin, I don't remember on the application process, is there a specific time? I know it has to be sustainable for it to, that's one of the criteria for the application. It has to be something that the LEA can sustain over time. But are there any more time constraints, Erin?
No, it's something that's happening during the school year, and they're all in that 14 to 22 age range. So part of the goal is for the schools to create something that they can execute while the students are there in school. And there are some school-based enterprises, and then there are also some where they're doing kind of more job readiness type activities the first year or so, and then they fold that into a business either as a school-based enterprise or in the community. And then some of them have even taken it a step farther, kind of outside of the scope of this project, and they're building on work-based learning through recommendations like having the students apply and participate in SEAL. So they're creating kind of a continuation there to help the students build the skills.
Erin, can I ask you to give just a couple of examples of the projects so that members get a feel for that?
Sure. And I think we have a slide. Is it the next one, Jamie? That gives you kind of an idea of where each of those fall. So these are the general fields that they currently fall into. Let's see, industrial, there are two or three sites that are doing e-waste. That's the new term for computer parts that have been dismantled. So the kids are learning how to do that. They're learning how to recycle all of it. And then there's a a community component because there has to be the right sort of facility to recycle that. Custom printing and hospitality are the two really big ones. The most common examples of that are there are several districts where they're either working with a printer in the community to take orders through the school, and in some cases through a website they create to custom print for their community, or for things like sports teams. They're creating all kinds of spirit gear, and part of their sustainability is selling it, and then they put that money back into the project so that when this startup money is gone, they're able to keep doing it and then expand over time. Hospitality, the most common example is either like at my high school, it was called a mercantile, where it was basically like a little cafe, or there are a couple that are doing coffee cart examples. They've tried to take that and make it less sort of niche by having the students do the coffee cart for kind of the interaction piece, and then bringing them back into the cafe setting where they can kind of combine the two, so that they're learning not only the interaction and taking the orders and giving change and that kind of thing, but they're also learning the bookkeeping part of it, and the cleanup and how to run the machines and all that. So there are a lot of different versions of that, but that's probably the most common one in hospitality. I see a question. I don't remember one in Forney, but I can definitely check. And if they don't have one currently getting off the ground, then they may have one in the pipeline. The other thing to know is that A&M wanted to be able to increase the number they were able to review during any given contract period, because we had so much interest. And so they've just submitted a renewal, I'm sorry, an amendment to go from 25 to 30. And that doesn't seem like a huge jump, but each of these is a big deal to get off the ground. There's a lot of technical assistance, especially, that's involved. So I expect over time it will increase slowly like that. And the schools really like this because it's a work-based learning opportunity for their students, but it gets rid of the very common barrier they have, which of course is money. So we're able to help them get started. Any other questions? Let me check the chat real quick.
And that's the benefit of reviewing the applications. You get to know all the details. So we're super excited about that work-based learning opportunity and seeing where it goes.
Yeah, that was great.
So those are a few highlights of our work-based learning opportunities.
Very exciting, but some of those entrepreneurial opportunities are included. That's going to teach a lot of really good skills.
And that's it.
Any comments or questions for Jamie and Aaron?
Yes, I did do that, have other technology work. These are do other technology work, not computer.
So it's driven by what the school creates.
Yes.
So they create their own program around their industry that they want to focus on. And they work with, part of the requirement is that they work with community stakeholders so that these skills can be transferred in their community, or maybe these are, in-demand skills needed in their community. So there's someone from the business sector that's required to be on the little committee that creates the project, as well as other community partners. And it's specifically based on what industry they're targeting.
Yeah.
So it's in collaboration with their community.
Okay, thank you.
One of the things I've really liked about it is that it's a great option for rural communities. And we've seen a couple of very small towns. The one that comes to mind is Ozona, because Candace just asked me about Region 1, but Ozona, like if you've ever been through there, it's super small. So they were very enthusiastic about getting something off the ground and pulling the community in.
You know, also there was a federal program called FOD, we you see the opportunity fund. Doesn't come for all the fathers, I think would countries. That's not that was hoping to do more opportunity about the countries.
Any help you need from the council?
Sorry, I'm having trouble hearing you.
Not yet. They asked for any help. You gotta be careful when you ask. We'll think on that. I won't say no. I'll say we'll think on that.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Sounds good. Jamie, thank you. Aaron, thank you.
Thank you, Aaron.
Andrew,
And Andrew.
once again. All right, folks. We had a great session here. I want to once again thank Candace and Jonathan. Thank you for having us. Thank you for hosting. Thank you for letting us learn from you. Want to thank all of the council, our VR division friends, all of the liaisons. Good session. I personally learned a lot. I hope the rest of the council did as well. And just want to kind of end on a kind of a high note. Today's what, May 5th, right? Cinco de Mayo. Enjoy Cinco de Mayo. Have a margarita.
Yes.
Have a margarita and enjoy your weekends. So Monday is another week, another work week. Thanks, everybody. We'll adjourn.
Thank you.